We're started. Officially. I have begun. How's it going? Hello, Strum Eagle. Hope you're doing well today. And everyone else who is here or will be here. But yeah, Strum Eagle, how are you? Hope your day is going good. This is what we painted last Saturday. Or last Thursday. Last stream, not Saturday. Today is Saturday. We did not paint this Saturday. But yeah, I was pretty happy with this. It was fun. But you know what? Today, I am going to jump. I'm just going to do one painting. This daunting blank canvas. I am not doing... I'm going to make this a little smaller. Like that. Just because I'm recording the time lapse for this. I don't want it to lag. You said you're good. Just taking a break from cleaning. Nice. I need to do some spring cleaning. I actually just ordered like a hand vacuum thingy. Just because I feel like it would be nice not to, because normally I have to like bust out the attachment part if I want to do any like serious like good cleaning. Either that or like use like a hand brush thing to like get the corners of stuff really well, which is just a pain in the butt. So I think it's gonna be easier. But yeah. And that should arrive like tomorrow. And then I can also do some cleaning. More proper cleaning, stuff that I feel like I've been putting off. Anyway, okay, what am I gonna do? So I just turned on my time lapse, I think. Time lapse, yeah. I'm not gonna do thumbnails today. I'm just gonna jump straight in and paint. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any plan. Having a small vacuum would be great, yeah, for sure. Let's see. Do I want to do Map Crunch? Maybe I combine it into Map Crunch? I don't know. I was pretty happy with what I did last stream. So last stream, no, was it last stream? No, it wasn't. It was Monday. Today's Saturday. So last stream, we did these. And this one, obviously this is not the real location because I think it should be clear. I mean, maybe it's not clear, but this was painted from Map Crunch, but I changed the form. So like in the actual photo, it looked, like this, and these things weren't, I don't think there was a river of any type here, but it was basically a field and it kind of looked like that. I liked that process of just taking a thing and like making it different. And so maybe I'll do that again today a little bit. I don't know. Because like if I go here, let me share. If I go here, actually this spot's gorgeous. What the heck? This has got to be like a campsite. I was like, if there's a person's house right here, I was gonna be pissed off because this is too nice of a view. Can you imagine? You just like, this has to be like a national park, right? Teton County. Okay, this is Grand Teton National Park. It's gotta be. Yeah. I was gonna say, there's like no way. This is like just out. Just, yeah, this is at my house. This is where I live, right here. Just, I can walk down to the stream every morning and catch some fish with my bare hands. See the view. What a gorgeous place. What the helly? Seriously. It looks like bear country. It does look like bear country. There looks like there would be bear in here. Maybe there's even some. How are you, Drepzilla? What the helly? But yeah, no, I actually, this is a standalone image. It doesn't even let me move. Discovered by Eevee. I like how it's like, this is discovered, this place. Anyway, but yeah, hope everyone's doing well. Alright, this is more of what we would expect. Even this is gorgeous. Dude, I need to get out more. Every place is gorgeous. Like, I feel like outside is just nice. Got a bit of a headache, but otherwise pretty good. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, this spot looks a little... No, even this is gorgeous. What the heck? Every spot we go to is just... Okay, this is more... This is more city life. This is more what I would expect. Although, even this looks nice. Where is this? I don't know. Tel Aviv. We're in Tel Aviv. I mean, it's a pretty nice... Do you ever draw cityscapes? Not if I can avoid it. You mean like inside, like a town, or like big bustling city? I mean, I don't really do. I mean, isn't this what we did last stream? A city is city skyline-ish. Oh, you mean like yeah, city sky? No, not really. I don't really like just like painting far off distant city skylines. I'd rather be in it, you know? I don't do a lot of like modern cities, if that's what you're asking, or places that look super modern. This feels a little bit more like, I don't know, like I guess when talking about like building materials, I don't do a lot of like metal and glass. Let's put it that way, right? I like the stone, the uneven edges, the you don't have to make everything all perfect. It can be choppy and chunky because, stone is like cut and stacked and, I don't do a lot of glass if that's what. So like modern cities, but that's not even true. I guess it's very much like American big cities. I don't do American big cities. Hello Omi, how's it going? Ha ha ha. How's it going, Omi? It's pretty early. It is pretty early. You are here right at the crack of dawn. Actually, it's not dawn, but you are here right at the start of the stream. The crack of stream. That sounds weird. But yeah. Welcome in, Omi on YouTube. Where is your award? I don't know what the award we're gonna give. You get the good job. High five through the internet. I don't know. Okay, Drovzilla. But yeah, so first person, let's see, who is first? Stramigal was here first, right? Yeah, Stramigal was the first one on Twitch. Omi was the first one on YouTube. Okay. So yeah, I don't know what I want to paint. But regarding this whole city thing, yeah, I don't really paint a lot of cities. Sometimes I'll do like, like fantasy towns. But yeah, I've never been a big fan of like, like iconic like city skyline type things. I don't know. I'll paint. I guess that's not true. I do paint city skylines. I'll paint like buildings and stuff off in the skyline. I'll do something like this with like fantasy buildings in some paintings. In fact, I probably do that more than I do actually painting in the middle of the like actually like in the middle of the city or something. But as I was going to mention with the glass and the metal and glass buildings, it's funny because like if you go like my one time in Europe, not all cities surprisingly are not like American cities with like a big metal and glass skyscrapers, right? A lot of them are like European medieval vibes, right? Like you have a lot of stone. Um, and so you just, I feel like I do more of that stuff and not a lot of the, like, your iconic, like, New York City type stuff. Can you draw the link you sent that Thursday? I don't think I'm actually drawing, uh, uh, what do you call it? I'm not actually doing Map Crunch. I might. My plan is not to do Map Crunch today, but I sort of am. I mean, yeah, here I can bring it up. I can bring it up again if I can find it. You sent it on Instagram, right? Let's see. Let me take a look-see. And I don't like going through Instagram. It's lagging. Am I lagging? General. Uh I'm glad these aren't on screen, all my DMs. I don't see it. What's your name on Instagram? I don't remember what your name is on Instagram, Omi. You're not in primary, are you? That would be kind of weird. No, you're not. General. I don't see you. I don't know what your name is. Uh, is your name Jesus? No. I don't know. I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see it, Omi. I don't know where it is. You're not here. Maybe I'll search you. O-M-E-E. Enter. Oh, okay, I see it. So you sent a couple ones last time. If I click it, click in random links, good thing. So you sent this one. This was the first one you sent, which was gorgeous. Don't think I'm feeling painting just rocks today. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, this one's quite nice. But I'm not gonna paint any of these specifically, because my plan is to do like a one and done sort of just a painting. And then you shared some others like these. This is very saturated. Holy moly, this blue. This one's pretty gorgeous. And then you also linked this one. I don't know if you can even see my screen. This one's cool. I do like this rock. That's a neat rock. This is a cool painting. Hey, look, there's a person. We could probably do something with this. I do like that there's a shadow here. Maybe some sandy desert beach with these dark rocks. Also some red rocks. Maybe that's what I do. Maybe I do a scenery with like different types of rocks. All because normally like when I paint, right? Normally I do like oh wow, straight out of Far Cry. Yeah, normally when I paint stuff, I do a lot of like homogeneous type things. So like if I'm painting trees, every tree will be the same type. Um, but I like that in this image you have very distinct types of rocks, right? You have these types of rocks that look very different than this type of rock, which is a very different rock than this rock, right? You have different kinds of rocks. And I like that. I think that's a neat, I mean, even like here, right? You have a lot of jagged rock, but then you also have these more beaten down rocks that are a little bit more bumpy and rounded. Um, Also, I don't know what this looks like. What, a slate or something? I don't know. And then this is maybe it all is the same type of rock. I actually don't know, but this rock is very clearly weathered and different than this rock. Also, this is like white rocks. These are very dark. So yeah, definitely something cool there. Maybe I do some stuff like that. But let's see. Let's see. How do I want to do this? So I'll move this off my screen. Gonna close those. Close that. You can use that rocks in your painting. Yeah, maybe. Okay. So I'm just gonna jump straight in. I'm feeling, what colors do I want to paint with today? That's not a nice color. Maybe some blues, some more blues for sky, because you know skies can be blues, but skies don't have to be blue. They can also be green. We can have some green sky. Why not, right? Green skies with lots of yellow. That's very yellow. Maybe we do some warm yellow reds in the foreground. Maybe a lot of grays to mix it up, to mix the stuff together. I'm going to take a smudge brush and do that. So I'm trying to get my chat. Use gray color. Yeah, grays. Grays to combine the warms and cools where that transition color is. You get a lot of grays. Grays are just nice in painting. A lot of grays. I'm just smudging my color around to get a lot of this very desaturated gray. And you could almost already imagine like a dirty shoreline or something. Not a shoreline. I'm not actually going to paint the scene in the map crunch. But yeah, you could almost already imagine some sort of like place with those rocks here. The ground, of course. Maybe there's like a place. Although one thing I do, already I'm finding myself doing this. One thing I do want to do is try to play up the scale. So instead of having a big foreground object and a medium background object and that's it, I actually want to do the thing where I make it smaller as I paint, and then maybe I make my shape design is a bit more nuanced. But yeah, maybe something like this where there's just some shapes in the distance, some shapes in the midground. Yeah, maybe there's a big old rock here. I don't know. Hey, Just Fiction, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Okay, let me open up a PureRef file though, so I can put some of those references in here if I need them. Elmi asks, in which channel should I send the map crunch links on Discord? If there's not too many of them, probably the Refs and Resources channel. Just be like fun places I found or cool places on Map Crunch. So if you wanted to do that, you could probably do it in Refs and Resources. Whoops. Or you could do photo references. This channel. Do this channel. Photo reference. Although this was going to be for like things that we took, I think. I don't remember. But try to keep it like don't try to be too spammy, but just you can put a couple links here to Map Crunch. But probably photo references would be a good spot for it. Yeah, Refs and Resources is more for like educational stuff, and then this is more like actual photo references. So do it in this channel. Photo references. Hopefully you can find it. Just Fiction says, doing all right. Thank you. Oh, I'm glad. Drefstill says, at Just Fiction, is that red and black Billy is really cool. That red and black Billy. I feel like I should know what that is. Oh, did somebody post art? Hold on. Let me see. Oh, Brent posted art. Is it sketch and work in progress? Photo references. I don't actually know. What is the red and black Billy? Now I'm confused because I got all confused. In the art share. Art. Is it higher up? Art I posted yesterday, LOL. Is it in my Discord or someone else's Discord? Or is it... Wait, are you talking about Casey's Discord? Or am I just confused? Art. I don't see it in art. It's probably not in my art. Oh, fiction. Oh, I see it. Wait. Oh, some Billies from Deadlock. I drew this week. I see it. I found it. Oh, these are super good. What the heck? I didn't see this. No, your Discord. Okay, I see it. Look. This is just Fiction's art. You're insanely good, by the way. I know I've said that before, but holy crap. This character is so good. These are all so good. Dang. The goat guy in art. Yeah, okay, I see it now. I don't know why I didn't... I guess I was just looking at this because it was the stuff posted today. But yeah, no, this is amazing. I'll click on the fire emoji. But yeah, amazing work. Okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna start painting stuff. Moving some shapes around. Oh wait, no, I was got distracted. Hold on. I was doing something. What was I doing? Oh, map crunch. I was gonna screenshot this. I was gonna screenshot this because I liked The Rock. The Rock was cool. Not like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but you know, this Rock. And that was neat. And then I also liked these rocks. Were pretty neat. Rocks are just neat, aren't they? There's another one. Okay, there. I've got a few images of rocks here. Now I can just minimize that. There we go. Also, I might be lagging a bit. Hopefully I'm not dropping too many frames. Yeah, we can put some rocks there. But I don't want to paint. I don't want to be, like, stuck to this, right? And so I'm kind of just going to actually ignore it, mostly. I will still have it here, but I'm mostly going to ignore... Dwayne Johnson could be behind that rock. We just don't know. It's true, yeah. It's true. I mean, in fact, not only just behind it, he might even be in this image. Like, 1 pixel for all I know, you know? Like, maybe his tippy toe is poking out and we just, you know, I'll just never find it because it's literally 1 pixel. He could have his little pinky toe poking out here. You know, he's actually back there. Yeah, we don't know. We can just pretend he is. So, anyway. Schrodinger's Dwayne Johnson, yeah. High walls in a way... wait. It looks like valley. It looks like that. Oh, this? Yeah, it does kind of look like a valley. Yeah, could be some overlapping shapes and something. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I'm kind of just trying to play around with color in my stylus. Almost... No, it didn't die. I just want to get some colors down that sort of work. So I'm thinking, like, if this were hypothetically an object, it could be like an occluded area. So maybe there's some darker shadows in there. Again, I don't know what the forms are going to look like, so I'm not too worried about it. But I kind of imagine there is some foreground deep shadows. Maybe, I don't know. This green is kind of weird. So maybe I get rid of some of that. But I do like some of that blue up here. Maybe I push it towards blue just a bit. A little darker. I don't know. I kind of like this shape here. It's kind of like a neat shadow shape. So we could definitely have some light hitting these sides. So maybe there's like a rock. This is like the inside of the rock. Not the literal inside. And then like maybe there's another shape here that also is in light. It looks like a scene from The Lion King. Oh, does it? Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. Lion King is like this, right? Like it's a like Pride Rock where it, like you have this thing and then you have the monkey dude throwing the baby off. The baby is here. Baby. Actually, he's holding the baby out. I like to pretend though he's throwing the baby off. I don't know why. Is that bad? That's anyway, there's the baby. That's the monkey. Not throwing baby off. I don't know why. I think I saw there. This is actually this is hold on. The leg goes like that. There we go. There, that's the scene from Lion King. Yeah, someone made a funny animation of that. Exactly. Yeah, and I've seen that animation, and I can't help but not see it. Every time I see Pride Rock, I always see the baby being thrown off. Very silly. Yeah, it is silly. It's great, though. But please do not throw babies. Okay, I didn't need to put that disclaimer, but you know, maybe there's somebody listening who doesn't know better or something. So now you do. Okay. Let's see. But yeah, I'm not trying to do anything fancy here. Just trying to establish some sort of color. It's the valley where Scar takes Simba when he was a kid. Oh, okay, with like the hyenas, and then you got the bones, right? They got the bones sticking up. Yeah, I could see that. Kinda. Kinda. It's very, at this point though, I'm not trying to figure out form. I'm honestly just trying to, I'm thinking a little bit about composition. The elephant graveyard? Yeah, the elephant graveyard, I think. Maybe that's not what Omi means. I don't know. But I do like this light right here. This light is very cool to me. And not in temperature-wise, but like, it's just neat. That light right here. I don't know why. I just like it. There's like a shape. Maybe we put... No, this palette's very different. Yeah, the palette's different. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, color-wise, I don't think it's the same at all. But I'm not too worried about that. What if I go like this and just make some shapes like that, pick that color, and like that, and go like this? Is this too intense? Is that too intense for lighting right here? Maybe. I mean, kind of something. Also, am I still recording time-lapse? I think I am. Edit or file time-lapse. Yes, I am. Okay. Perfect. But yeah, I'm just doing a one-and-done painting. I'm not... There is no, like, real planning or sketching. I mean, this is my sketch. Maybe another thing here. Maybe another light back here. I should probably think more about composition. I mean, we could do this though, where some light on the ground here. This is not a very graphical thing that I've done here. I'm not too worried about it though. I got plenty of time. Where the day is still young. Lots of time left. I'm not in a hurry to figure it out. I do like that some of this green color poking through. In fact, I might even push this and do more of like a teal jungle kind of, like a lot of teal color. I'm sort of liking that. I don't know. I like playing around like this. You have 5 minutes to figure it out. Oh, did you do it? I apologize. Did you do a 5-minute thumbnail sketch to redeem? Or wait, no, you didn't. Why do I have 5 minutes? No, I got more than 5 minutes. I got all day. You're joking? Okay. No worries. I just don't know which screen to look at, and one of the screens doesn't show the things properly, and so you concerned me. I thought I missed stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not in a hurry. I'm just kind of exploring. It's sort of my warm up. I like to tell myself it's my warm up for the day. And yeah. You said the day is young, and I'm jokingly threatening you. I see. I see. I mean, there will be a point where if in like an hour I still haven't made up my mind of what I'm painting at all, then I might be concerned. But I'm okay with just moving. I think Cynics does a thing. He calls it paint splorium. No, that's not the right word. Uh, paint something, where it's basically just him playing around and no care in the world kind of thing. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm not really I'm not really worried about anything right now. I'm just kind of painting, going with the flow. Some darker shapes here. Paint exploration, that's the word. Paint exploration. Yay, it's that. And I'm kind of paint explorating, where I'm just exploring, I'm playing around. If there's things I want to explore and do, then I'll do it. But I am like still nudging it in a direction that I think is cool. You know, some rocks in the foreground, some darker shapes. You know. I thought it would be fun to make animations this way. It would be. That reminds me a little bit of, have you ever played Gartic Phone with other people? Not, I think it's the only way you can play it. But where like there's there's a game mode where everybody continues the animation frame by frame that somebody else made, and so you kind of push the animation in a direction, and it doesn't always end up where you think it's going to end up. And I feel like you could totally animate that way. You just start with a drawing, and then you're like, what if they were doing this thing instead? And then you start pushing them in a direction, and you're like, you know what? This kind of looks like, it'd be like animating with a memory of a goldfish, although that's actually a myth, I think. But it'd be like animating with short-term memory loss, where every few frames you forget what the direction you were going, and you have to make it back up based on the direction. And I could totally see that being a fun way to just like jump into a thing and see where it takes you. This kind of makes me think of like an Oasis, not the band. And so what if there was like a little bit of water there? As long as you don't look at the frames you just drew, you will lose memory of what you were just animating. Fair enough. Yeah, but sometimes you have an overarching goal in mind though. Like you might you know that your initial goal was like, oh, it's a person throwing a ball. And yeah, you might be halfway through and you're still like, oh my gosh, what just happened before? But you could at least then still carry through with like, oh, it's a person throwing a ball. Whereas like it's not just the ball isn't going to turn into a flower and sprout wings and fly away, and you're like, what happened there? Whereas in Gartic Phone, because you don't know what people's goals are, that can happen. Like you could have something that if they don't know what you drew, then they'll just pretend that it was something else. But yeah, I think that way of painting, that way of animating would be fun. I don't know what kind of results it would give, but yeah, it's very similar to how I'm painting, you know? I'm not caring where I'm going. I'm more just like, oh, that's a cool shape. Let's explore it. Also, if this is an oasis, what if we did more than one shape? So a couple shapes. And then, as oases tend to be, right around the water, you get a lot of greenery. So there's a bit of like storytelling and color. And then as you get away from the greenery, maybe it gets less green. Go figure. So I'm adding some of that other color back here. The green can come back down into the foreground. Yeah, you'd have to be doing straight ahead animation for this rather than animating with keyframes. Yeah, fair point. But definitely doable if you can let it go of perfectionism. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I could animate that way because I am the least perfectionist. I am not a perfectionist. I'm sure there are some things where it may appear to an outsider like I'm a perfectionist, like if I'm nitpicking like a certain thing in a process or something, but I am not a perfectionist. I make so many tiny little goofy mistakes that are just like, whatever. I can't be bothered. I am the opposite of what's the opposite of a perfectionist? What do you call that? Like the lack of attention to detail. I would say I'm big picture focused generally. And so I think in terms of big picture, I can be a bit of a perfectionist. Like I like to have some sort of, I don't know, a loosey goosey. Yeah, I'm a loosey goosey. That's for sure. A loosey goosey. That's definitely closer to what I am. Carefree. Yeah. Well, I don't even know if that's the right term because I'm not totally carefree, but it's more that like I guess when I think of perfectionism, I think of like the little details, the little stuff. There are there are big things that I care a lot about, right? A lot there. I mean, in fact, I care a lot about process and I care a lot about, like making sure you have time to like explore alternatives or, or even in this is maybe not going to sound too art related, but like get more than one source for like your information. And so, getting multiple references. I care a lot about that stuff. I don't always do it on stream, but like there is some degree of I'm not carefree in the sense of just like I don't care about the results, but it's more I care a lot about the process and if the results end up, I don't have to know exactly where it's going. I don't have to have a total direction, but there are still things that I care a lot about sort of on principle, like having I don't know, I'm trying to think of an analogy. I can't think of one, but because like I'm trying to think of other areas in my life and even in art, like I do think, maybe I am more carefree. I don't know. Except I'm like carefree, except when I choose not to be, and then I do care a lot. But like, hmm, I'm trying to find a way to frame it so that I can better understand how I am with art. So this can have a nice overlap. Like, I guess I'm a big believer in this. I'm trying to think even to like, so there's a game I've been playing. I've been trying to get good at it, which is called Teamfight Tactics. I mentioned it last couple streams. Been playing it a lot. And I think that's a good example because like that's kind of there's a lot of like creative decision making in the moment, and I kind of don't care, what composition I play, if it's good or not, in some sense, but I do care a lot about the fundamentals, and I care about like learning and trying things and like there are things I care about, and I think in art it's kind of the same. Like I'm not worried about the end product, right? Not so much. It's more about like the individual steps or the decision making or trying new things. I think my goal, my sort of my overarching goal in art in some ways is just like always having something that you're trying or learning or experimenting with. Um, and sometimes, making the best piece of art in the moment isn't that important because you can learn a lot by having fun and like trying new things. And so I think maybe the premium, like the goal isn't just about the art, but it's also about like the experience of like improvement and learning and trying things and uh like I think like I care a lot about those parts of art, right? So anytime there's something that it relates to art that sort of butts its head up against those concepts, I suddenly care really deeply about it. Which is why, like, when people get me on the rant about, like, you know, oh, you need the best equipment and stuff, I'm like, no, like, you don't. Like, will it make you better? Maybe, probably not, but like, it that just isn't, you know, I almost care on the other end, right? Like, I care a lot about making do with what you have and making the best out of whatever situation you're in, you know, that kind of stuff. I don't know. Less art things and more like life things. I don't know. Very philosophical here. What am I painting? This definitely feels like rocks. I don't know if any of that made any sense. Also, this totally feels like a waterfall. It wants to be a waterfall. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say. I was trying to find words as I'm talking, and it's not turning out very well. Do I like that? It's kind of weird. I'm not sure if I like that. Also, this sky is very gray, which I might like. It's not a big deal if it's gray. But it also, there's not a lot of contrast back here. That's kind of neat. And then this really blue color can kind of bounce its way into here, into the shadows. And we get these saturated blues down here. And then we have the light coming in this way. So maybe we have, these are deep blue. And then maybe these are bright yellow. That's not bad. That's very something. Hello! Drew Holt, how's it going? Hope you're doing well today. Hope the day is nice. Okay, I like that. That's a fun little painting. Now I'm not sure if I like the shadows that I made, but I do think there's something here. And there's some rocks and stuff in the foreground. Now, let's think about this. What if there was a city? This kind of makes me think of city, doesn't it? Doesn't this kind of look like city? So think like tall tower building off in the distance. Maybe another one here. Maybe another one here. This looks lovely. Big fan of your work. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm just making it up as I go right now. Normally I start out with a bunch of thumbnails. Also, I just undid a bunch of lines, which that was the first time I undid anything today, I think. Normally I start out with a bunch of thumbnails. Not quite like that. Like, here, let me open up an old file. This one. So normally I start out like this, where I do a bunch of random thumbnails, and then we pick one, and we work on it till the end of stream. And last stream we picked this one, and then I turned it into this. Whoops, into that. Thanks for the hydrate, Skittle. So this is typically what I do, is much more like thumbnailing, voting, you know, that kind of thing. Today though, I'm just doing it all on one canvas. I am no thumbnails, no sketches, just jumping straight in and seeing what I can do. because I'm partly this is also this is going to sound stupid. So I always feel like I have to call myself out because I am acknowledging that I'm kind of doing this for social media, which is kind of stupid. Like I don't do that very often, but I'm kind of behind on like a a Patreon post. And on Patreon, I try to do like some sort of process walkthrough, and but every time it's a little different. I think I might even do my next post and like I like to sort of I think a good one would be breaking down this because each of these were sort of a very, even though they were all from MapCrunch, they were all, the focus was on something different. Not subject matter, but like process wise, right? This one, the process was more on just like, I guess, perspective and focusing on, hard surface stuff. But this one was more on the process of like light and dark, and literally starting with like two values. Whereas this one, I just jumped straight into the whole painting, but my focus was more on like composition design and like trying to carve out these shapes because this is not the shape of the trees. And then this one was more taking the colors and the general theme and just like turning it into my own, just like its own environment. So like they were all kind of had their own focus. And this one, I'm just jumping straight in, doing a lot of experimenting, which is a little different than I normally do. Like for all I know, this will end up, totally changing as the time goes on. Maybe I'll like it if it looks like this more. Actually, I kind of do like that. And so maybe I'll put some stuff back here. There's a rock here. This maybe is like a this is now the focus of the painting. But yeah, so the process is a little bit more chaotic, I guess. And I wanted to do that, just like a one and done painting, sort of having it all tidy. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of, in some way, this is sort of influenced by social media because, like, this kind of thing you see, like, if I were to do the time lapse, you'd see me fill in like this square and then this square, then this square, then this square. And then maybe I would pick this square and I would zoom in and I would start detailing it. But sometimes it's nice just to have everything on one canvas right from the start. And so that's kind of what this one is. Love to hear about the process. I mean, they're all kind of, so this one is just me just making it up as I go. But sometimes, like last stream, I started with MapCrunch places. So I had like a random scene in MapCrunch. I don't know, is this showing on my screen? Yeah. And so I would hit random scene in MapCrunch. I might pick something from a location like, oh, I really like, in this scene, I might say, maybe I really like the colors, right? Or maybe this tree is cool. And so I'd paint that tree. Maybe I would just paint this full scene. But I might also say, oh, I really like these brickwork and I want to do something with this brickwork or painted bricks, and then I would maybe make up the scene around it. So a lot of times I would just be finding something that I like maybe it's this, maybe it's an icy scene. Maybe I just like this whole scene. Or this is really cool. That's neat. Like, what if you were to take this and make an entire house out of this? This is like an old boat. Also, the scale is hard to tell here. But yeah, what if you were to make like a full-on house out of like a tipped-over boat? Like you could zoom this in, use it as inspiration for a building design, right? Or maybe you just want to paint buildings, and so you do a little scene like this and just paint it in full. Maybe you edit out some of the weird, tangents and stuff of like the wires and the roofs or whatever. But maybe you mostly just paint what's here. So like this could be a color study, or it could be a design challenge inspiration, or it could be what else could it be? It could just be like practice painting snowy scenes with like, I mean, there's so much stuff you can do with things like this. So I definitely like painting for MapCrunch. I think it's a lot of fun. But today, I'm not really doing that. I'm basically just jumping straight in. Although oops, what did I just hit? My finger hit the wrong button. So today, yeah, I'm thinking about turning these into buildings. And I might play with scale. That's something that I sometimes struggle with, and I have like the samey looking scale. And so maybe I'll play with scale a little bit. Joe, I have to say, as a Sonic fan, there's a loop in your... Oh, yeah. Sonic could totally run down here and go, Pooh. Although it's not a full loop, it's just like a half pipe. Is that what you mean? Lemon Cat, how's it going? But yeah, if you were Sonic, you could totally run down here. I don't see the full loop, though. Yeah, I don't see the full loop. Is there a full loop? A loop-de-loop somewhere? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, we could paint a full loop. So, for example, if I went like this, we could totally imply that it's a full loop. That's kind of neat. That definitely gives some sort of like more fantasy uh experience. Like this is much more unnatural feeling, which I like. I like the idea of a full loop right there. Or mostly a full loop. Maybe it is a full loop. This one can come off the page a little bit. We're making a Sonic. It looked better as a half loop. Hey now, you know what? We're committed, okay? The whole point of this stream today is just going with the flow. We're gonna put some distant objects back here. We're gonna go with the full loop, okay? You aren't the boss of me. Also, I like this as like a little bit of a shadow here. It's kind of neat. Sorry, I've said what I needed to say. Do what you gotta do. No, it's all good. I'm obviously kidding. I think it's fun though. This gives more world building though. The full loop might look better, but you know what? Sometimes things when they're like human designed, they can look kind of stupid, but it also gives it character. Omi on YouTube says, Joe, I'm going to sleep now. Sorry, mate. No worries. Don't need to apologize for going to sleep. Nobody needs to be here. If I only want you here if you want to be here. You know, like I want people to be here on their own volition. So yeah, no, I go to sleep, get some rest. Thanks for popping in. As always, good seeing you, Omi. Take care. Okay, we definitely do have a perspective issue, but that's okay. I do like some of this. I mean, I do. It is weird. This is a weird shape. What a weird shape we're making. Maybe another one over here in the other direction. Also, what's going on with these things? Like, are these rocky terrain? Maybe this thing is this massive scale, so we have... Trying to push the scale here a little bit by making some additional cut-ins and stuff. This, maybe a bit more square. Kind of has like a, I mean, we could even go like this. And then do another loop over here. I mean, Is it a little flat, maybe? Also, this is silly looking, for sure. It can't just be a circle without any entrance, because how would you get into it then? You'd need a pathway leading into the loop. I mean, maybe from the other side. Like maybe this is like the balcony. So like this is where you'd enter. So imagine this is the, like a platform here, right? And this is looking out over this lake. So if from the other perspective, maybe this is like, you enter it from behind back here, and then you I don't know how you get up there. I'm sure there's a way. Can't enter it in the loop if skill issue. Yeah. Exactly. Maybe it's skill issue. Just gotta get good. Lemon Cat, if you want to enter the loop, you gotta just find a way. You'll know when you're ready. Uh, skill issues, I guess. Yeah, no, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Or I haven't thought it through. Definitely a weird environment. Get good like Sonic the Hedgehog. Yep, exactly. The Hedgehog. I do like the blue back here though. It's kind of neat to have this bright blue poking in. You know? Maybe you jump into one of those ping pong bounce things that bounces you into the loop. Maybe. Oh, like the springboard platforms, like that looks like a target thing, and you go boing, and then you jump through, and it's like it would actually be a fluid motion where you go bloom, and then you do your little spiral off in the distance. Is that what you mean? Like one of those things? Making a Sonic the Hedgehog level here. Yeah, maybe. I wasn't intending for this to be a Sonic level, by the way. I love Sonic. I don't know. I mean, I have played Sonic. Do I like Sonic? I feel like there's a lot of... Gosh, I don't know if I like Sonic. I think I like Sonic. I think I like Sonic. I wasn't like a Sonic lover. It was also a childhood game for me, but it was never one of my like my super top games, you know? There were a bunch of like system specific games. Like Sonic was for Sega, I think. And then uh like PlayStation had Crash Bandicoot, right? There were all these like IPs specific to these different companies. Of course, Mario for Nintendo. I always felt like Sonic was kind of mid. I felt like it was okay, but like Mega Man, the mascot video games, yeah, like Mega Man was one. I love Mega Man was great. To me, Mega Man was up there. Obviously Mario was up there. Crash Bandicoot was at the very bottom. Spyro the Dragon, uh, kind of kind of bad. I feel like Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, those were all the same. Sonic, honestly, to me wasn't much higher. It's like a little higher than those, but not a lot. I don't know. I wasn't a huge Sonic fan, but they were pretty cool. That whole talk reminds me a lot of a game called Defunct. A game called Defunct. Never heard of it. Yeah, the mascot video games, yeah. Spyro was fun. Yeah, it wasn't bad. But I just felt like those were like as far as the characters and how much you like looked forward to the next one. I remember playing some of like Spyro, but I never was like, "Oh man, I can't wait for the next Spyro game." Right? I never felt like that. Sonic maybe a little bit I felt like that. Like I felt a little bit like ooh, the next Sonic game would be cool. That's kind of how I'm basing my entire opinion on this topic, is just like how much I looked forward to the next one as a kid. Whereas if you compare like Zelda, for example, Zelda was like hype. Like every new Zelda game, I know a bunch of people who felt like that about Spyro. This is all very subjective. Oh, of course. It's absolutely subjective. No, 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 no. My opinion is the law. No, of course. Yeah, it's extremely subjective. But yeah, I think like Zelda, total S tier, right? S tier. I need to do it. I'm sure there's so many tier lists for this kind of thing out there already, for video game tier lists. I feel like Zelda's gotta be S tier. Mario, of course, has to be S tier. Um, I guess Sonic's pretty up there, like B tier. Sonic feels a good. Mega Man and Sonic probably are pretty similar, right? They've got to be similar. Although I personally liked Mega Man a lot more, but okay. I did not forget to hydrate from like an hour ago. I'm trying to think, what was my favorite game? Like that was like you said, mascot type game. I don't know. What was your guys' favorite mascotty game as like, I don't know, not necessarily as kids, but just growing up, I guess. I guess that is as kids. You tend to grow up as that's how childhood works. What am I talking about? Do we push this further back here? I'm trying to think how to. Do I want to push this back? And also, if anybody has any questions about what I'm doing or why I'm doing it or anything, feel free to ask, because I'm kind of just noodling right now. And I'm happy to talk art stuff and process or ideas or just the things, just talk about things and stuff. Things and stuff. I think there's a very different audience enjoying Sonic than there is enjoying a lot of those Nintendo characters, because Sonic has so much lore outside the games. Really? Oh, I didn't know that. I guess I didn't know it all about that much lore outside the games. Wait, what is Sonic lore? Hold on. Is there really a lot of Sonic lore outside the games? I had no idea. I mean, I know like there's Sonic and Tails and there's different games, but like Sonic is huge in comics and stuff, and there's oh, I didn't know that. I had no idea Sonic was a comic. Wait, did Sonic start as a comic? Hold on. I am how old am I? I only am now knowing this. I didn't know that Sonic was a comic. In fact, if you were to have asked me right now which I thought was more likely to have been a comic, Sonic or Mega Man, I would have said Mega Man. Because Mega Man always felt more uh like boss and villain oriented. And so I always felt that like those had more storytelling in the game because it felt like a comic book. Maybe Mega Man was. Wait, was Mega Man also a comic? Because it totally could have been. Sonic, I'm actually surprised. Lemon Cat says, watch Sonic CD animated intro from the 90s and it was amazing. Lemon Cat says, the Chaos Emeralds. Oh, that rings a bell. Not a very loud bell. I don't quite even know what that means, but it does sound familiar. Okay. Okay. So I do like this. I wonder now. So we have this oasis And what if I make this oasis? Hold on. Maybe not that. Maybe I do it on a new layer just to be safe. So what if I'm thinking, what if I go like this and do some of these like same shape design or shape motifs or whatever you want to call it? Maybe one in the foreground. I'm trying to give the illusion that there's like more of these things, you know? Maybe there's some sticking up. But I don't want them too... They're very big, so they're gonna be not super clear. Maybe in here there's some stuff in the middle. Canada Hazuki says, I've never seen Sonic manga and anime in Japan recent years, but it has some collaborations in Sega game titles. Gotcha. That makes sense. How are you, Canada Hazuki? Hope you're doing well. Just Fiction says, as Western comics, there's been a lot of Sonic comics for the past 30 years. Gotcha. So it's a Western comic thing. I didn't know that. Dang, I've learned a lot today. Well, probably not actually learned a lot because I'm sure I'll forget it. That tends to be how it works when streaming for some reason. Things I learn on stream are very temporary. I don't know why it works this way, but it does. Okay, here is this is kind of cool. Little shapes back here with the greenery. I'm just trying to put smaller shapes. I do like this blue though. Actually, I like this blue a lot. In fact, do I like... Could it be a little bit lighter, like a white? Or is that too... Trying to think how I want to do that. No, this kind of work. Maybe a little bit lighter. To lighten that up just a smidge so that when I make the values, right, that way we can tell them apart a little bit. For a Sonic painting, it's 2D saturated, in my opinion. We need more. This isn't actually a Sonic painting, by the way. I was kind of joking. But I am going with that motif a little bit with like the rings. The rings are a fun thing, but no, this is not a Sonic painting. In fact, I'm gonna start adding some additional like details here to like ancient ruins or something. But yeah, no, Sonic is way more saturated than this. But that's an easy fix. We can always crank saturation up if we want later. This is like a step, an old ancient oasis or something where you can like step down into the pond or the pool. Also, what's this here? Let's go like that. I don't quite know if this looks like it's going downward, but maybe. I don't know. We need an orange and brown chest pattern on the terrain. True. Wait, Sonic does have that, right? Sonic has some crazy patterns. Hold on. Let me see. Sonic environment. Let me just see what it looks like. Images. Ah, yes. Classic. There we go. Look at that. I forgot about this. Why does it look like this? I am so confused. Why? I totally forgot all about that. Why does it look like Cheetos or something? It looks like an unhealthy snack food. This makes me think of like, oh yeah, it looks, oh, because it's like racing patterns. Oh, it's the racing patterns. That's why, because race checkerboard racing, that makes sense. Sonic the Hedgehog game. Screenshots. Hold on. Screenshots. Even back in the olden days. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that texture. That was a choice. Man. That really... What a choice that was, huh? Can you guys see that? Yeah. Oh, classic here. Look at that. Ooh. It really does. Yeah, the classic checkerboard flag pattern. Yeah. Let us not question the design choice of the early 90s video games. Don't like dummy 3D environments often come with a checkerboard texture. I don't know. I feel like in the early days, I feel like, I don't know. I'm sure there was like a, what do you call it? Like technological limitation, which is probably why they did something like that. I don't know. But it was definitely a choice at some point, I feel like. It might be inspired by Super Mario Bros. I don't know though. Yeah, maybe. Lemon Cat says, I have had dreams where I was in a Sonic world like that with the orange checkerboard clips and stuff. Was amazing since I'm a fan. That's awesome actually. I have played games where I've played them so much that I've had dreams about the game. I think a recurring one throughout my childhood was Age of Empires. And in some ways, like me, I loved Age of Empires growing up, but whenever I had dreams about it, I hated it because I always woke up exhausted because it was always like a long slugfest of a battle, and I was like literally drained afterwards, and I was just so tired. And so I would wake up having dreamt about some long battle, and I would feel like I was mentally exhausted. And it was like, man, that was the worst sleep I've ever had. Like, just, I did not wake up refreshed. I would wake up stressed, like it would be a long battle and I'd lose, and I would like be disappointed. It was not a good time. Like I love the game, but no, I didn't want to dream about it. Um, so yeah, that those are the only video game dreams I really had. I can't think of many. Um, but yeah. I've never had a dream where it's just like me chilling in a game and loving every minute of it. It's always like a competitive game and I'm losing or I'm winning and I'm stressed or something. But you know what I noticed from looking at these Sonic screenshots? Just how desaturated my painting is. So let's bring some of that in there. Not the checkerboard, but like maybe I go in here and maybe I'm going to use a brush because I don't normally do this. What if I do, actually no I'm not. I'm going to do a saturation layer. A layer with saturation in it, crank it up all the way, and just plop in some saturated, look at that saturation. Just, oof. Not quite that much, but just a little bit, especially on like this yellow, punching up the saturation spots right along the edges of the light and shadow. Slowly, even when you say it's not a Sonic painting, it's still becoming one. Well, just wait for the once I start making checkerboard patterns, then you can call it a Sonic painting. But right now it's not a Sonic painting. Bane Miller 4203 on YouTube. Hello there, Bane Miller. Hope you're doing well. Your video game dream was Twisted Metal. Oh, Twisted Metal. I forgot about that game. So much fun. I have some good memories of just hanging out with some of my friends, playing that game, blowing each other up, launching rockets at each other from vehicles and stuff. It was great. It was telling me a few weeks ago. Wait, telling me a few weeks from now, new Twisted Metal game. Wait, they're making a new Twisted Metal game. Oh dang. This is like a long time ago. Future dream, I call it. Wait, did I read that wrong? Are they making a new Twisted Metal? Because they totally could. Although I don't know if today's audience would want it. Maybe? I feel like they could get away with it. I don't know. Hello, sir. It's fun time. Thanks. Yeah, no, Twisted Metal. Oh, man, I'm so nostalgic for that now. Trying to figure out what I'm doing with this saturation tool. Like, obviously I'm not going to make the whole painting this saturated because that's ridiculous. But a little bit, like right around the focal point, I feel like I could do that. Or maybe in the foreground, some of these greens as they're on their way down. Maybe I make like a not so subtle path of green that leads us to the focal point. Kind of like a path going down. I don't know. Yeah, not quite sure what's happening here. So I'm just going to make a new layer and start painting on top. I'm thinking I want this to feel like one of the hardest things, at least for me, that I've ever done in painting is trying to make stairs looking like they're going away from you, but you're looking down them. Because that edge that overlaps is hard to show. Like if this is in light, for example, and this is in light, then they're both just light. And so you have to like do something to show that they're going down. It's very, very difficult for me. Once you start adding the Roman soldiers, it can stop being Sonic and start being Age of Empires. This is never Age of Empires. There is nothing like this in Age of Empires. Did you know Age of Empires 2, despite having technically there are 4 Age of Empires games, but Age of Empires 2 currently has like big tournaments ongoing. And sometimes I watch them on Twitch. There's there's a chess streamer, or not chess streamer, what am I talking about? There's an Age of Empires streamer, a couple of them, and they are all like big streamers. They get like multiple thousands of viewers. There's an active competitive scene. It's crazy. And like a lot of the people who fund the tournaments because they're like my age, because they grew up with Age of Empires. So there's like a pretty thriving Age of Empires 2 competitive scene, which is wild because the game is not only an old game, over 20 years old. It's also not even the newest game in the series, right? A little, I guess it's a little bit like when all the new Smash Bros came out, but like Smash Bros Melee was still the competitive one. Although now I think people actually do. But also the definitive edition that came out some years ago probably brought a lot of people back. Yeah, I suspect so. Yeah. But anyway, no, I actually really enjoy watching Age of Empires 2 streams. I was pretty good in my time. I think I'm still all right. I played a couple years ago, about a year ago I think I played a game or two. It definitely is. I'm certainly rusty and not very good, but I was okay. I played it pretty like somewhat competitively ish. Not like I didn't like enter tournaments and stuff, but like I tried hard and I learned a lot about like I like would watch the replays of people who beat me and the pros and see what they do and sort of like study that. So like there I took it pretty seriously. Um and I feel like I got pretty good at it, but that's all relative. You played so much AoE 2 when I was younger. RTS games aren't quite my thing anymore, but used to really like them back in StarCraft and Warcraft. Yeah, StarCraft and Warcraft days. Yep. So I never really got into StarCraft, which, was undeniably the bigger competitive game. Uh, I think even in like, especially in like South Korea, it was massive. Um, but even in the US, it was certainly the more like well-known and popular competitive game between like Age of Empires 2 and StarCraft. But yeah, I just never got into StarCraft. It was too unintuitive for me. Something about like I think I mentioned this before on stream, but a lot of these strategy games, there's like counters. You can think of like rock, paper, scissors, right? Like this unit beats this unit, which beats this unit, which beats the other unit, right? And this unit is weak against that unit, and this one's weak against that unit. And so there's like, if your opponent is playing this unit, you can play this other unit to counter them. I had a really, really hard time just sort of intuitively understanding it with StarCraft. It didn't make sense to me. It was just like, oh, alien and another alien and random marine dude and also like weird space tech civilization. Like, how do I know what beats what? Like, I never got it. And like, I know there was technically like, oh, it's the type of armor and the type of damage, but like, I never got it as like a younger me. Whereas in Age of Empires, that kind of thing just made a lot of sense because it was like, oh, you got a big long pointy stick. Well, that's really good against horses. And if you have a big bow that you can shoot people, that's going to be good against someone who's slow and walks on their feet, right? Like you can shoot down the infantry before they get you. But if they're really fast and they're on a horse, you're going to beat the person with the bow because you can get to them before they get to shoot you, right? Like there was kind of a logic to the whole rock paper scissors type things. Um, I would say most 1v1 games have this rock, paper, scissors counter. Yeah. A lot of them do, but a lot of those mechanics were not inherently understood and on like an intuitive level, which for me made the game less enjoyable. It felt like I was just spamming units and I would hope to win. I didn't really understand like the path to improve and make choices. And for me, that's always been important. I need to feel like I have agency over the game, right? Where if I feel like I have agency and control over the outcome, I can like get in the spirit of like, oh, I want to beat them next time. I'm going to try harder. But with a game like StarCraft to younger me, I didn't understand what that even meant to like try harder because like I'm building units and like I didn't know why sometimes it was just it felt very abstract to me whereas Age of Empires felt extremely intuitive. And that's one of the reasons I loved it so much is it felt like I never had to think about the strategy aspect of it. Um it was like it was very clear what units beat other units. I never at any point I must have learned it at some point, but it felt like it just came naturally. Um, and so yeah, I think that was a big factor in terms of like what games I enjoyed as a kid. Is like, did it make sense to me on sort of an intuitive level right from the start? Which I think is just like anybody who does like game design, uh, that's probably a pretty good way to think about it, right? Like making your games feel understandable right from the start. They can be deep. You can have deep games with lots of nuance and stuff, but some basic core feature of the game should be understandable, just, right from turning it on and playing it. That way you don't have to like, I mean, you still have to teach people where tutorials and all that, like a little bit of tutorial stuff. Even like Mario has a tutorial level, right? You may not think of it as a tutorial, but it still teaches you the basics of like, oh, there's a block, you can hit it and you learn to jump. And then there's like, oh, better watch out, there's a mob coming towards you, and then you have to learn to jump on top of it or else it's gonna kill you. And you learn that if it hits you in the front, then you die, but if you jump on its head, then it dies. And like you kind of learn this stuff very sort of slowly. And anyway, uh, but yeah, I feel like that was definitely a big factor for me liking games. So yeah, I'm trying to just add in like little bits of shape and stuff back here, some little shape design. Wait, I'm on the wrong layer. So I'm trying to make it look like we're looking down. Or not down, but like these are stairs kind of that are going down. And I think this is how I'm going to do it. Also trying to make these rocks feel like they're like a pile of rocks. Kinda. I don't know. Maybe not a pile of rocks. The scale is kind of weird, admittedly. But yeah, I think of all the games that I've played in my life, I think Age of Empires is probably one of like my sort of that Age of Empires 2 and Diablo 2 are like my two sort of the games that shaped me in a way. Like I feel like those games were so like important to my upbringing or to like my childhood. Diablo 2 in some ways, like I played that from like teenage years even into college. I played that game so much. Although it was much more social for me. Unlike a lot of games nowadays, like Age of Empires was very competitive, right? Whereas Diablo is much more social. Have I played the New War? No, I thought about it. Um, I saw that it was a thing that they still. I've never played the new Diablos, like the Diablo revival or resurrection or whatever they called it. I've never played that, which is like uh, it's Diablo 2, but it's like revived and resurrect. It's the same game, but no, I haven't seen anything much about it. All I know is that there was a new class. I think I tuned into a streamer momentarily and I saw them playing it for a bit. But no, I don't know anything about it. Have you played it? Honestly, the only reason I didn't really get back into it is because I spent so much time playing it in my teen years that I feel like I don't want to get back into it because it's just the amount of time I spent was so like I spent so much time playing that game and I don't totally regret it, but like a little bit part of me regrets the amount of time I spent playing it. I'm trying to hold off saying the time spent wasted because I don't have any problem playing lots of video games, but that game I played an excessive amount. Like, there's those memes of like people who basically shut themselves off from the world and like played World of Warcraft for like 15 years and basically didn't do anything else. That's kind of how I felt like with Diablo 2. Granted, it wasn't that long, but it was a lot of time just like not doing things with people because I was playing so much of this game. And yeah, I had friends and stuff online playing that game, but it was a lot. Yeah, so I kind of just don't want to play that game again because it's like I don't want to get addicted to it. I'd rather be addicted to a game where I feel like I'm actually having new experiences in the game. So yeah. Also, what am I doing here? What is this shape? Do we go like things like that? Uh, you want to experience it. I tried not watching his streams because I want to experience myself instead of looking up current meta or whatever and destroy all the fun figuring stuff out. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I think that's also something that I liked about Diablo 2 as a teenager is that we didn't have I mean, there were sites and stuff with like builds and things, but not really. It wasn't quite the same as it today, right? Like, you didn't have stats and knowing what's good. Like it was, you could kind of make stuff up, and there were some forums like D2JSP that would help you theory craft and build your builds and stuff. And but it was mostly done between like groups of friends and people who took it seriously. It wasn't as like outsourced back then. Yeah, you had to think. I actually have so one of my first jobs, I think I was in high school. I had a job at Walmart. I was a cashier back in high school for a brief time. And I remember I was manning the self checkout. So basically I wasn't doing anything. I was just standing there, occasionally hitting a button. I was like 17 probably or 16, I don't know. I was just like every time the thing beeps I would hit a button. I was literally mindless. And I remember I have the self checkout, like you have this little like kiosk thing, or not kiosk, like a little podium thing that you stand at. And I remember having a piece of paper, just like like a rectangle, like a receipt or something, like on the back, and I was literally writing down like item, like best in slot item stuff for like a character I was like theory crafting in Diablo, and trying to figure out like where am I gonna get this extra 24% faster cast rate for my breakpoint? Where am I gonna get the cooldown recovery? Because I need it from somewhere. Oh, what if I were to swap these two items around? And like, oh, here's how I'm like, there was like theory crafting. And I remember doing this at Walmart in my job in my teen years. I'm like, just sitting there writing down like the things and like, okay, well, what if I had, a 4 socket armor and these were the jewels and they could hit all the things I need to hit. It was like, yeah, it was kind of fun. Yeah, I was like doing math, like literally adding up stuff, and like there was no like calculator online, where you just plug in the numbers and it tells you the stuff, and it does. Yeah, sounds like a good time. Yeah, I mean, it was getting paid to theory craft Diablo 2 builds. Kind of funny, actually, in hindsight, but yeah. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I like wrote pen and paper for builds on, for things that I'm playing. So I'm trying to add some greenery up here and stuff. I don't quite know what I'm doing with this. I'm kind of just having fun. There is no real plan behind anything that I'm doing. Some of this I don't like. Okay, I'm gonna try something. I don't think using color dodge here is the right choice, but I am gonna use color dodge here just to help plan out. To help plan out some stuff, to try and like, where do I want the saturation to be? I mean, that's something like that's pretty neat. Where it kind of goes across the page like this. And then this can kind of go like that. I like that, actually. And then here, so here I'm thinking about it. What if I bring in a little bit of light, like a white or something, like a very bright, even brighter than that. So these white ripples. And then something like that up here. So I'm trying to think like how, you know, little bits of like a path that kind of like stairs or something. Or some sort of pathway that leads down. Do you have a formula for something with saturation, like big, medium, small? In this case, it's more just I'm trying to direct the eye with saturation a little bit. No, not really a formula. I mean, it's basically around the focal point. No, I don't, because sometimes so here, let me open up other files. I mean, I think I have a couple, right? Yeah, I mean, you could apply it to that stuff, but in some sense, I do that with more like, you know, this is not inherently it's not always saturation though, right? Like this is pretty saturated, and this is pretty gray relatively. No, actually, that's not true. Let's just pretend it's true. You know, let's pretend the orange is saturated, and this blue gray right here is pretty gray. That's not really true for the whole painting. Right, but I like color ratio between orange and blue is definitely like off balance, right? There's definitely a big, medium, small thing going on there. It's not always the same. Like I don't think saturation is always, you know, a small shape, or like bright saturation isn't always small. Sometimes you have them inverted and you have, you know, most of the painting is saturated, then a little bit of desaturation, right? That happens a lot if you have like a natural light. A lot of times natural light with like sunlight is very desaturated. You'll have like a moonlight or something, and so you might use the desaturation in a nighttime scene as your small shape, right? The rest of your painting might be really saturated, and then you have this like little spot of moonlight shining in of desaturation, right? Because oftentimes direct light is desaturated. So you could do that. That's like the opposite kind of. Sometimes I do the other thing, which is most of the painting is gray, and then you have a little punch of saturation in like a key spot. I don't think there's like, I guess there's kind of a formula. I don't know about formula if that's the right word, but yeah, it's definitely a principle of things I think about. Like, I mean, I guess I think of it more as like pushing it or pulling it to one side or the other. It's sort of like, is this, for example, like, is this painting a dark painting? If yes, then value-wise, so stepping away from saturation for a second, if this painting is a dark painting, then value-wise it might be like, you know, mostly dark with like a little bit of light, right? And so I might have like a, you know, some ratio of dark to light, right? So not 50-50, right? It's, when I say push and pull, I mean push it and pull it to the 50 to either side of 50-50, right? So making a choice, either mostly dark or mostly light, right? Same thing with saturation. Like, is this a bright and sunny, vibrant day painting where the birds are chirping and everything is colorful? Or is it going to be a gloomy and dreary day, right? If I know what sort of vibe I'm going for, it's very easy to start to pick, like, okay, this stuff's going to be saturated. This stuff's going to be not saturated because I've decided this is going to be a gloomy, dreary day, right? If it's going to be bright day with, birds chirping and stuff, this stuff's going to be the gray and the and maybe or a nighttime scene, and maybe this stuff's going to be the saturated, right? And of course it's not always the same. It's kind of like, oh gosh, there was a so I apologize for bringing in video game stuff, and I'm going to try not to be specific here, but uh, I was watching a video on like a team fight tactics thing of like somebody trying to explain it, and he said like the more reasons that you can think of that support your decision, the better, and like try to think through, because like a lot of times you're trying to, you could do either, right? It's a lot of times it's like I could do this or I could do this. And I guess in my head a lot of it is like what does this direction actually do for me? What are the pros? What are the cons, right? Like and I think that's a lot of the same way I think in art is like it's not that one is better, but it's I'm making a choice and I'm in my head, I can understand what the choice is doing, right? A more saturated painting might make it feel less vibrant and exciting and cheery, right? Or maybe if it's nighttime, for example, as I mentioned, it will feel more saturated overall, and so the bright spots are gonna have to be more limited. Or maybe it's overall dark. And like depending on what I do, whether it's composition or color or saturation or whatever, right? All the different art things, right? What perspective I choose, all of these are going to do things, right? They're all going to have reasons or things that they do for my painting. They might change the mood, they might change the scale, they might change the movement and how dynamic it is, which is again is going to change the mood and all that. It might affect storytelling, it might affect subject matter, right? There's all these things that it could affect. And the more that I can sort of build a case for it, and the stronger the case is, the more likely I'm going to go down that route, right? And so I think I do kind of have some sort of, I don't like the word formula, but yeah, I do have a little bit of that in the sense that like I think there are things that having this, like for example, this sort of impact where you have a little focal point of bright saturation and that really catch the eye, there are things that it does, like it makes the place, to me, especially in like the sun, I think it makes it feel very like special. It's like a shimmer kind of, right? It's sort of this, that's like spotting a unicorn, right? You're like, oh, look at this is special, this is a unique spot. And so I think having a limited amount of saturation helps that. I think if I were to make the whole thing limited, it wouldn't have that like special feeling, and so there's just little stuff like that. And so like for this scene, which is an oasis, I also want where do I want the saturation? Not just how much, but like where is it? Is it over here? Is it over here? Like no, it's probably around the main spot, like around this oasis. So maybe I put some here along the water lines, maybe along here. Oh, Windows security says it did not find any threats. Thanks, Windows security alert. So yeah, like sometimes it's sort of like there's, if the theme is an oasis, I might put the saturation radiating out, right? It'll tell a story in just its proximity to the oasis. If I'm, so it kind of depends on what I'm doing. I was pretty much just concerned. Yeah, so I mean, I think the proportions, again, it kind of just depends, right? Sometimes I would invert it, but generally I do have some sort of big, medium, small, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think the concept of big, medium, small does kind of, it sort of holds true for most things, most concepts, I think. So yeah, I think thinking about it in terms of big, medium, small is fine. And I do think about it in some ways. Maybe less so. I don't know. Although this painting, I'm struggling a little bit to like simplify some foreground shapes probably. That would probably, I'd probably do good to think about big, medium, small a little bit more here. I am trying to add small shapes though a little bit. Although actually right now I think saturation could do a lot here. Saturation and direction. So for example, if I were to take like a saturated color, I could do something like that. That kind of pushes the eye to these areas. That might be a bit too much. We could also do like a character walking down here. And that would kind of give you, help sell the illusion maybe. Oop, my screen just went dark. Love the vivid green near the waterfall. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Hopefully my computer doesn't crash today. Because I am doing the recording the time lapse, and so sometimes that makes it a little bit hefty on the file size. Just gonna condense everything. Yeah, I do. I also like the very saturated part down there. Yeah, right now though I'm more focused on the on this part. Part of it could be, you know, these are larger. Hmm. Something like that, maybe. Very blue in the shadows. I'm trying to make this look like these are getting lighter and further away, you know, so some atmospheric perspective, but also not too much atmosphere. I can probably fill in some of these darker shapes though with a lighter material. Maybe some even brighter greens up there, just sort of on the top of these. Now, is this a shadow? Or is this... I don't actually know. I wasn't sure if this was a shadow. I guess it is a shadow. It should probably be more shadow color. I wasn't actually thinking it was a shadow at first. I don't know what that is, to be honest. I don't think it is a shadow. No, I think it's a literal formation here. Here, we're going to go like this. It's an actual formation. I'm not sure, actually. When you don't know what your own painting is, you know you're in trouble. But yeah, I think my biggest issue right now is that I feel like I'm going to end up looking at this painting and not like what I've done with the foreground. I think maybe some occluded stuff, so like some deeper occlusion shadows or ambient occlusion would be good in the foreground so that it'll help make this stuff feel like it's closer. Also, some overlapping shapes would do good. They would go a long way, I think. Also some greenery down here, probably. Like here I am trying to focus on some shapes and stuff that we wouldn't see in the background. Some darker greens. Just to help like bring our eye in and sort of create some sense of lead in to the scene. And then over here we can get a little bit dark or lighter in the darkness. But yeah, I do want little specks of like super dark. Because these are the closest parts to us that are also very dark. Like they're the deep dark shadows. But as we get far away, like this, for example, I don't want these cracks to be too dark because this is further away from us. And I want to give the illusion that we're like going downhill, kind of. Maybe this window can be sticking up. It's a little bigger. Maybe another one. And another. I don't like the shape there. I just want the shape poking up, passing that line. I want it to overlap. That's really the only thing. I guess I could come in here and do some atmosphere like right along the edge at the bottom. Okay, I am liking this. Now what about this stuff here? Some of that blue could get in here. Lots of depth in this scene. At least that's the goal. Yeah, a little bit of green on these rocks too. Could be fun. These are our small shapes and our big, medium, small. Just trying to add little additional shapes back here that make for this thing to feel a little bit, I don't know, makes it feel kind of fun. Also get some of that blue back here. We don't need this to be so dark. So I'm just painting right on top of that brown. Same here, right? Just putting a lot of blue on these rocks because they are in the shadows. Uh-oh. Did my stream disconnect? I don't know. Maybe. I don't think so. It's possible. I have a lot of stuff open. We love some blue shadows, right? Blue shadows are great. Okay. 1 second. Let me... it's good? Okay. It's all good on your side. Nice. Glad to hear it. Okay, so what I want to try to come in here and multiply and just see what it will happen. Because sometimes I get the feeling... I'm going to use a blue. Sometimes I get the feeling that my values aren't quite as good as they could be. And so by coming in here and basically darkening everything and just like re-adding where... Oop, what just happened? No, that's dark. Just basically coming here and re-adding where I want the focal point to be. And sort of painting it back, I can sort of get a better sense of what is possible in my light. Do I need everything this bright? No. But maybe I, you know, keep the foreground a little bit darker. Right, I can still keep the rest of it bright. Right, and it's kind of painting some of this bounce light almost. Maybe the path gets a little bit of light. Down here, we get a little bits of light. Right, I think that helps a lot. So now, right, I've really darkened, especially in around the edges, in the foreground. I think that helps a lot. And that was hard for me to see until I did it. And then you start seeing it, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Do you know a game called Call of the Sea? It sounds familiar. I don't know it, though. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that game. But also, something like this, now I'm thinking about composition again. What if we went like this? Do we want this to be... You play a lot of indie games? Nice. Nobody knows them. It's all... Well, I am unique in that I don't know that many games. I mostly just play a lot of the same games. Okay, sorry, I keep flipping the canvas. If this is distracting to people, I apologize. I'm trying to figure out how I want to approach this. Do we put a big rock here in the midground? Maybe this thing, it goes this way? And we could do that. It sort of implies that there's one of those shapes. I like that. That's fun. Now, what do we do here? Do we add like patterns on here? I don't know. I'm quite liking this though. Now, some of this stuff there's still some hard edges that I want, and then there's some spots there's not hard edges, right? Like, some of them I want to almost blend it. And of course, the brush that I'm using is a little bit soft. Okay, so here I'm going to save it, and I'm going to... I think I'm ready to start painting on it. Like, I mean, I am painting, but I'm ready to... So my canvas size is not that big, right? My canvas size is only 2,200 pixels wide and 1,300 pixels tall. So I am going to duplicate my whole painting. I'm just going to flatten it while I'm at it. Copy it. Actually, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy it now. Then I'm going to stretch it to be quite large, maybe. Nope, not like that. Crop. What am I doing? Why is this tool doing this? Crop? Okay, there we go. Crop. Why can't I grab this corner? I can grab all the other corners. Okay, whatever. I'll just stretch it that way. That was weird. There. And now, when I paint on it, I can make it a little bit higher resolution, and I can actually add some details and stuff for the next hour or so before I end stream. So I do like to scale up my painting as I'm working on it. It's a trick that I learned. I don't know who I learned it from, but I remember seeing an artist talk about working that way, where they just start sketching on a small resolution screen, and then as they work, they upscale it, and then that way it adds they're adding the detail. As they get to the more detail-focused spots, they have more pixels to work with. And as they're doing the big blockage stages, they don't need a lot of resolution, so they don't use it. And I've always liked that way of working. It also saves my computer from melting. Am I not worried about blurriness? Nope. Because not in the... because I haven't done the details. So the details will be the sharpest thing. And I might get a little bit of blurry in, like, the random spots in the background or in the sky. But, like, who cares? It's blurry. It's painterly. It's not in focus anyway. If there's something that I want to be in focus, then I just haven't done it yet, right? I haven't painted that. If I want this to be a really crisp edge, well, I can do that, right? Because I haven't made those choices yet. So in a sense, you're building from big shapes to small shapes, right? You start with the big stuff, the big general shapes, and as you work in, you sort of res it as you go into the next stage, if that makes sense. Because I don't need everything to be just as crisp as each other. In some ways, it actually benefits it, because then the stuff that you made early on is going to be a little bit more blurry. But like if I come in here and I readjust this will now be a higher resolution. Just Fiction says, working on smaller scale is so useful when doing layouts and initial concepts. Learned from a comic artist friend to do a page layout in super small scale on Post-its, and it was so useful not to have to focus on specifics, just panel layout and general compositions in each. Yeah. I think that's... Yeah, I mean, thumbnailing is great. No, but what I'm talking about more is just up-resing the image. Partly just to, like, not kill my computer. You know, if I'm doing, like, and also, like, the size of my brush, right? Early on when I'm doing a composition, if I make a new file here, and I paint bucket gray, right? Early on when I'm doing a composition, I might have my brush relative to my canvas. Here, let's make a new layer. Thank you for the follow. So if here's my thumbnail that I'm doing, right, and I'm painting here, I might have my brush take up 50% of the canvas. If I do that here, I'm going to lag my computer to no end, right? I cannot paint this large. It will kill it will I won't be able to make a brush stroke, right? It's I don't even want to try it for fear of crashing my stream or something. But here I can do that because this is a small thing. This is not that many pixels, right? This is a fairly small canvas. It's, small thumbnail. So when you're making big shapes and you're exploring concepts like that, I think it's really nice to be able to use, you don't need a lot of pixels, but also you can get more real estate. If you're doing a big block in, I can block in 50% of my painting in a single brushstroke. If I try to block in 50% of this, I mean, this would just be awful. I'm not even going to try to go quickly in that. Like it would not be good, right? That's too much stuff. No, because I think one of the reasons I'm dropping frames is because my computer is struggling, and then it actually drops stream. So if it was just lagging, it would be fine. But no, I think can actually kill my stream. So maybe someday, maybe at the end of stream I'll do it for content, and we'll see how it works. But yeah, so that's kind of one of the reasons why I upres is because as I'm working on smaller portions, I can keep the brush size relatively the same just by upresing it, right? So now when I'm doing detail, this could be a high res image and it's fine because I'm detailing, right? But in this early stage, it's also, it does kind of create that natural like focal point though. Like, so for example, if you have a big image like this, right? Here's my image. And not a big image, but just a regular size image. If I'm gonna do something like, let's say I'm drawing here's my block in stage. Let's see. Foreground, midground, background with stuff in the background. Here, we're gonna do something like this, actually. I'm just gonna, you know what, let's do this. We're just gonna do a quick thumbnail here. Let's make a lighter color. Maybe something here. Maybe it comes down that way. Actually, let's do this. We'll do more like mountainy scenes. Or something. Okay, and then something like that. Okay, so anyway, here's a very simple scene, right? 3 values. Maybe we'll even add a 4th value here in the distance. There we go. 4 values. Maybe we'll put a tree up here or something. I don't know. Maybe not. Doesn't really matter. So at this stage, I haven't done any details, right? And so I kind of think of like this is the first stage, and then I can essentially start refining it. Maybe I upres it, and then I can start worrying about some of the more detailed stuff. Maybe I want to add some lighter, some nuance of values in here, right? And so now there's some more value. And this is maybe where I'm a little bit more careful with my lines. But none of this is the focal, like none of these are super important yet. And maybe I want my focal point eventually to be right here, right? So I'm just going to make a shape just so it's clear. And this is where, so up to this stage, it's still very loose. But then maybe there's a point where I keep everything the way it is and I start rendering the focal point. And this is where I would zoom in, but instead of zooming in, I just upres it a lot. I upres my painting. And then I can start adding things like, oh, here's the cracks around the details and this thing goes like that. And, it has a little thingy. This is where I might be rendering it. And all the rest of the stuff isn't the focal point. So like, this stuff's in detail. This stuff might be in less detail. And then everything else is in the least amount of detail. And so I kind of have these zones of like, I don't really want this stuff to be in detail. And so the fact that it's a little bit smudgy or blurry is okay to me. if that makes sense. Yeah, it's like a shot. Yeah, it's like a film shot coming into focus. Exactly. It's sort of, the parts that I'm gonna add the rendering to, the stuff that I want to be in detail and in focus. I'm gonna do that last when it's in high resolution. So that early stage stuff, I don't care if the random side of the screen is blurry or not. In some cases, that's gonna make it even better. Hello, how to brush? That I love that question. Uh, on YouTube. I don't know how to say your name. How to brush. How to brush indeed. I don't know quite what that question means. So I do have a link to the brushes I'm using. I'll put them in Twitch and copy and paste them over to YouTube. I am using Zach Retz's brushes on. So this brush is Zach Retz's brush. I don't know if that was the question. But I'm using Zach Retz's brush. It's super nice. I'm literally only using one brush this entire thing. As far as if you're asking how to digital paint or how to paint digitally, I'm using a Wacom Intuos. It plugs right into my computer, and then I'm using Clip Studio Paint. I don't know if that was the question. But no, it's a really simple, it's a very nice brush. It can make some nice hard edges. It gets good coverage, but it can also have a little bit of texture. And if I paint sort of lightly, it sort of blends in the interior. And so it's good for mixing colors, right? You can have some pretty good color mixing. You can make it smooth, you can make it textured. Lots of different stuff, right? Any sort of gradients here and there. So yeah, no, I quite like this brush. It's a good brush. It can get a lot of, it's good for like shape carving. It's also good for, I mean, it's really good for everything. It's just a nice brush. It's probably not perfect for like small details, because in small details, you oftentimes want like, there's a little bit of a fuzziness you notice to this. And this is where I might come in here and like clean up some of this fuzziness, because my big brush work got a little loosey-goosey. And so I might come in here and clean some stuff up. But yeah, mostly this brush is what I use. I don't quite know what your question was, by the way. I wish I knew how to say your name on YouTube. I don't know how to say that. I think is that, I couldn't tell you if that's Russian or what. I actually have no idea. But hi, hope you're doing well. I am curious what language your name is in, because I am an ignorant American who knows nothing of the world. But yeah, there's little spots like this that I'll come in and clean up. And a lot of the stuff that I am cleaning up is still going to be smudgy and blurry because it's not in focus. Like here, for example, you can see it's a little pixelated. So even just coming in and using a smudge tool will give it a sharper edge if I want. Or I could just paint directly over the top and give it its own blur that's now no longer a pixelated blur. But yeah, I think when you use a lot of textured brushes and you kind of paint painterly, I don't think a little bit of pixelation is a bad thing. I think what matters is that when something's in focus and you want it to be in focus, that it actually looks in focus. And a lot of it's relative, right? Similar to colors, how colors are relative and like color temperature is relative. I think so is like hard edges and soft edges, right? There isn't like objectively a soft or hard edge. A lot of it is the, relative to the other hard or soft edges in the painting. This is a hard edge in this painting, but in somebody's painting, if all they use is the lasso tool, this edge might look like a soft edge, right? And so it kind of just depends on how you're painting, what types of brushes you're using. I did hear somebody, and it might have been Cynics once, say that if you were to randomly add a lasso tool brush or edge into your painting, and if it looks out of place in terms of like how crisp it is, then you're not using a wide enough range of edges. Like your painting is too soft if this is too crisp, right? There should be some spots that feel like they can be lasso tooled, and some spots should look like they could be airbrushed. I don't know if that's a good rule of thumb to stick to, but I kind of try to follow that a little bit. Is like which shapes are the most crisp. And again, just like our conversation earlier about like where do you put saturation and do you think of it in terms of large, medium, small? Same is true of edges, right? Do you think of edges as small, medium, large? Kinda, right? Like most of them are gonna have the same types of things, but maybe some have blended, blurry edges and some have these hard, crisp shadow shapes, right? And so I think there is like hierarchy of edges, hierarchy of, I mean, it's just everything. I don't know. I guess I kind of think that the more things like that you can think of, the better. You obviously get to pick and choose how you use them, but just being able to think of these concepts are going to at least allow you to have control over it because it's one more way of thinking about painting that you maybe weren't thinking about before. Like, do I think you need to actively think about big, medium, small every time you make shapes? No. But like being able to occasionally remember and be like, oh hey, this is a thing I have control over. Here's a concept I can think about. I think that's really useful, right? Do you need to think about big, medium, small as in regards to edges? Probably not. But like maybe it's a fun thing to think about and it can help make you make a choice here and there. And if you're making, 1,000 or 500,000 choices in a painting, right? Up to every single brushstroke. Most of it's just intuitive, but if you're making a ton of choices in every painting, even if one of them is better informed because of a concept that you very rarely use, like that's useful. And so, I think it never hurts to think about stuff like that. And, maybe it applies more to your work than mine or more to mine than yours. Um, you pick and choose, but it's just nice to be aware of these concepts and so that you have control over them when you want to use them. So yeah, that's kind of how I think about it. Drefzilla says the key is to train it every once in a while, so you just do it subconsciously. Yeah, I think most of art's like that, right? Yeah, you train them enough to where you start making these choices automatically. Yeah, I'm not there yet. I still have to think about a lot consciously. I think with rendering though, it gets there pretty fast. I know a lot of people that they talk about how rendering becomes like the mindless thing, and then the early stages where you're planning and doing composition and design and storytelling. A lot of that stuff is the difficult stuff, because I think a lot of those things are new and novel, whereas the rendering can become quite samey. It's like, oh, here's a shadow, or here's a bit of shininess. Well, I know how to make something shiny. I just make it brighter, and and I start putting in the light, and it's like, oh, there, now it's shinier, right? Or it has a little bit of reflected light. And so this stuff becomes a little bit more autopilot. But in terms of like where do you put the light and where do you put the stuff, that stuff I think is a design problem. And if anyone is on YouTube lurking or hanging out or chatting, do know I primarily stream on Twitch. So if I'm talking to people and you're like, "Who are you talking to?" It's people chatting on Twitch. Just throwing that out there. I do stream both places. YouTube is mostly for the VODs, but I always appreciate people popping in, regardless of which platform. Maybe here's a little bit of blue. So that's another thing, like the concept of shadow colors, like If you have the sky shining on something, it might be quite blue. So maybe we can get some more blue in here on like the tops of these rocks back here. Just blue shadows off in the distance. Or, you know, up here it could be quite blue. But then as we get steeper, for example, like here, it's going to be less blue because the sky is shining on this part of the rock and not so much on this part, right? And so a lot of that, like that's a concept that I have sort of internalized. So sometimes when I'm rendering, like I will just put the blue, I'll just go along and like put blue on the top surfaces of things because I know there's a sky up there. And to someone, it might look like I'm just putting random colors, but I'm being very selective about where I'm putting those colors, right? It's not just anywhere, it's in the shadows on the top surfaces of things. And sometimes when I'm painting, and you know, again, I'm not saying I'm the greatest at this or anything, but sometimes when I'm painting, I will get to something like this that has no top surface, and I'll use that as an opportunity to be like, oh, maybe this should be a three-dimensional surface. And so I'll add like a, you know, I'll bump it up, make it a little bluer, and I'll be like, oh, there's a little bit of a rendered surface on top, right? Just a teeny tiny bit, maybe a little extra surface here too. And so that'll inform, like, that's why I put those details there, is because I wanted to show that they have form. And what better time to do it than when I'm painting those top lighter blue spots, right? Same here. I might come in here and add little bits of light in here where that blue is shining. So now it's going to feel like those are, you know, things in the shadows. I don't know if that makes sense. To me, it feels pretty intuitive. Although there is some of these, just like grass and rock stuff, so I'm not quite sure what I want to do here. Like how much grass and rocks do I want to put in these spots? I'm really not sure. Could put some on the sides here. At least 2 grass and 2 rock. That's a good amount. Thank you for that. What would have I done without you? Without that words of wisdom. At least 2 grass and 2 rock. Well, like, I didn't want to make them like a big poofy, like, hats to the rocks, you know? Like, I could have. I could have put the hats on the rocks. But I kind of am trying to, like, where do I put them? Also, this is probably where some references would come in really handy. I technically do have references today, although I wasn't really looking at them, so I'm not sure how relevant they are at all. But maybe we could take a peek. I don't think these are going to help. Yeah, those aren't going to help at all. Well, let's get rid of those. Let's just hit delete. Pretty sure these I didn't use. These rocks also aren't very useful because they don't have any stuff on top of them. Some of the forms are neat. Maybe there's something there. Like some of the cracks in here are kind of cool. Maybe the little barnacle thingies on them. I don't know if that's going to be useful. We'll move that to the side. This one also... there's a little bit of greenery up here. Look at that. Some greenery poking up. It seems to be, you know, like the way it falls over this ledge here. A lot of dead grass. I don't think I want the dead grass. But it does seem to be quite spotty, so maybe that's actually a good thing. Like, kind of going on the side like that. It seems to be quite soft, and I'm pretty okay with that. That's something that I want to try. That's an interesting edge. This one? On that greenery? Yeah. Or wait, on the one I drew? Like a very straight corner? Yeah. I think because it's facing, like, my hunch is that the light shines against these rocks, and this side of the face gets a lot of this light or whatever, maybe. I don't know. I don't really understand the logic of where there's green and where there's dead grass, but there is some logic there, I'm sure. But if you just look at this as like also thank you for the follow. Nice art. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just having fun doodling today. I didn't skip the sketch phase and jump straight into painting. But yeah, I think if you were to like make this here, let me copy this and show you guys what I'm talking about. So if I were to take this and just imagine all of this as green, so anywhere that's dead grass, right? If I were to come in here and color all of this green, right? It's not all green, but there's little patches, right? There's a green here and here and here, right? There's a little top here that's green. Even that other grass. If I were to imagine where this is green, these are kind of the shapes that I'm trying to make in my own painting of like how does the grass sit on top of, right? How does it sit on top of these rocks? There are some steep spots here, and so that's something that I'm noticing on the steep spots, right? There's no grass. But then you have these flatter spots that are grass, right? So steep spots, no grass. But then again, there's some just random rocky spots too. Also, this is grass. And so that's kind of what I'm paying attention to, is like trying to make little patterns that kind of make sense here. I don't quite know how to do it. Spatial Notes, how's it going? Guarav VJ looks beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you're doing well, Guarav VJ and Spatial Notes. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing now, is like trying to make some of these things like, where's the grass, you know? Here's those steep spots. You know, here's some less steep spots. Maybe, you know, and if my forms suck, then I have to decide where's steep and where's not, right? You know, maybe this is a less steep spot. Although that's in light, so let's add a little bit of brighter green there. Maybe it's in the process of drying or becoming lush again. Oh, in the reference? Yeah, yeah. So in this painting, though, I don't want that because this is supposed to be like a very lush painting. I didn't really want the other material. I could have put some drier material or something in here of like another texture or another thing. I totally could have done that. I mean, I still could, right? Put some additional stuff in here. I don't know. It might be a nice way to add variety to the values. Something to think about, for sure. Who's stopping you? Well, me. It's whether or not I want to. I don't think I want to. Because I think it changes the mood here. I like the idea. There's this waterfall. There's probably a lot of mists, you know, popping up, which means there's a lot of moisture. It's everything staying properly hydrated, right? Speaking of which, I should probably hydrate. I feel like it's just a different mood than in that. But it is nice to look at those things and like find patterns of like, where's the thing growing and how do you make a choice of like, where do you put the grass, where do you not put the grass. Just having some sort of logical like way to make a decision, because you're not painting the exact same thing, so you can't just say, oh, there's the grass, let me put it in the same spot. It doesn't work that way. So you have to come up with some sort of, you know, armchair theory of like, where is the grass growing and where is it not growing. Maybe it's only growing on the north side of the rocks, or maybe it's only growing on the flat surfaces, right? Or maybe it's like, sometimes you just have to like come up with a logic and then follow through and find the logic that fits your painting. So in my case, it's misty, the whole place is going to be lush, and Yeah, like Just Fiction said, different plants have different levels of resilience to the weather, so it's also probably just different types in that photo. Exactly. Yeah, different types of plants, um, different soil types or whatever. I mean, some plants can probably grow directly on the rocks, and others would die because they need more soil to root or whatever. Like, there's probably all sorts of things, right? Um, so yeah, it's just kind of you get a having all these concepts in your head. I think is helpful because then you can start making choices, and I think that's what like good designers do, right? They have all these different concepts so that when they're designing something, they can say, "Oh, this is a different type of soil," or "Oh, this type of thing would pool here, so it's going to get oversaturated with water, which means some plants are going to die and other plants will thrive." And that there's sort of a logic there where like when you're making those choices, I don't know, that's always the part of art that I like. It's like because I think it's one thing to tell someone like, oh, put this color here or do this, but trying to come up with those sort of concepts on your own is tough. I think a certain moss always grows on northern sides of trees. At least I was once told. Yeah, I think I was told that too. Like if you ever get lost in the woods, you can tell which way is south or north based on where the moss is growing. I put that in the same category as like the brown bear lay down, black bear fight back or something, or maybe it's the other way around and either way I'm dead. I don't know. Like if I ever get lost in the woods, I'm a goner. You know. I don't know if it's always true, but like there's those things where like random survival things that I'll never use because I don't go outside. Uh I I do go outside, but not that much and not in random situations where I might need to know how to locate where I am based on moss. Let's put it that way. At least not in probably. And if I'm gonna be where there's moss, I'll probably do my research ahead of time. Or if I'm gonna be out in the wilderness, I'll do some research because that's the type of person I am. No, I think it is kind of true, especially in certain regions. Okay, I don't know if I like these rocks. This rock is very square. This is nice though. Bear Grylls Survival Guide. Yeah. I never liked those shows because I couldn't ever stop thinking about the camera people. It always just bothered me that like I would see those shots and be like, "There's a camera person. It's moving with him. We know he's there, and he's talking as if he's the only one there." I think one of them did like they set up the camera for themselves, but whenever there was like a crew and the camera was like moving along with them, it's like it completely killed the immersion for me. Just Fiction says, if I get lost in the woods and a bear spots me, I know I'm doomed. So I'll try my hardest to at least pet those cute fluffy ears before I'm gone. Yeah, right? Exactly. Well, maybe not the. No, I probably wouldn't pet. I would probably. I don't know what I would do. Spatial Note says CSB is so cool. I like to cheat in quotes and use the 3-point fisheye perspective ruler for. Oh, that yeah, the rulers are fun. I don't use those very often. Um, but yeah, no, they are cool. They you can snap. You can create your. My problem. So I'm gonna go on a rant here. Don't mind me. Uh, my problem with the ruler guides is that in real perspective drawing, most of the time, you don't strictly adhere to the grid. So what I mean by that is like, say you have 1 point perspective, right? So here's your image, and you have a horizon line and or 2 point perspective. Let's say 2 point perspective, right? And you have an object drawn in 2 point perspective. Not every object is oriented in the same way, right? Like, so these might go here, these will go here, these will go here, those will go there. Okay, rough, close enough. The problem is that not everything that you draw is going to have, yes, I could draw another object over here and line it up over there and line it up over here and do, wait, hold on. Now that's going to look all funky, right? I could do that, but that's also, I don't know why I drew it so distorted. But most of the time, you can rotate objects. You could say, well, here, let's redo this one because I drew that so distorted it already is bad. Okay, but like, let's say I was going to draw an object here. There we go. It's roughly in perspective. Not perfect, but close enough, right? But you can also rotate objects. So like another one could be here in the same scene. It's just now sitting like, right? Like it's still on the same ground plane. It's just rotated. I'm probably doing this poorly. I'm doing it very poorly, right? You could have another one in the same scene that's behind this one that's like this, right? And now this is like a 1-point perspective box, right? It's going over there. These can all exist in the same scene. And the problem with the rulers for me is that once you sort of establish your vanishing points, it's very hard to like break out of that. And so for me, I struggle with CSP's like auto horizon line things because in real life you typically don't have everything perfectly go to the same vanishing points. Now obviously if you're painting a single object, everything in that object, sorry, let's erase this. Right? If you're painting a single object like this, everything in this same object will go to the same vanishing point, right? So this line is going to go to the same spot as that line, which is going to go to the same spot as that line and that line, because they're all in the same object, and they're all parallel. But if you have another object that's rotated, which is a lot of times in environments is what you see, right? You don't have to have this object go to the same as this object, right? You can have it rotated. And that always bothers me with those like grids that snap to things, especially in the sketch phase when you're doing, a scene that has a bunch of forms and things at all different angles. These all vaguely go to the same place if you were to try and draw rocks in boxes, but like not really. There's no organicness to it, right? This one feels like if I were to make this in a box, right, it would be like this or something. I don't know, right? This feels like it would be a different box than, say, this rock, just by a little bit, right? So, like, this one would be going... I mean, they're all in the same general vicinity. Also, rocks and stuff are organic, so you don't have to put them in boxes. But they do have perspective still. Oh, so I was talking about, so Clip Studio has some features like a perspective tool where you can sort of create your eye line, you can create your vanishing points, you can do fisheye, you can do 3-point, you can do 2-point, and it'll snap every line you draw. Here, let me show you guys. It's kind of cool. I'm going to do the 2-point one. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. If I go here to Clip Studio and do perspective ruler, you can whoops. Uh-oh, I did this wrong. Delete. Perspective ruler. So first one is your horizon line. Is this version 1? Yeah. And then you can make another point, which is your eye line, I think. And then if you do another point, I think no, you can't do that. And so this will be 1 point. So no matter which line I draw from here on out, is this not working? Hold on. So these lines are all this is in 1 point here. This was a bad 1 point perspective. Let me undo it again. Okay. Sorry, I don't use this tool a lot. There's a way to do multi-point perspective, but I'm not going to do it, because I'm just trying to make a point. So this one is for 1 point. So for example, once you have your grid set up, you could do it in multi-point. No matter what I draw, the line will snap to this. So it'll either be horizontal or it will be like, so every single line is perfectly in perspective, right? So if I want to draw lines back here, these are all exactly, I cannot draw lines. I can technically hold like shift and make my own line, but if I just draw a random line, it's gonna go, you know, either horizontal or, so if you're just sketching out some quick stuff and doing like a building, you know, some quick buildings, some stuff like this, it's not bad, right? You can do, you know, windows and, you know, it's not bad for this sort of rudimentary thing. And of course you can set up for 3-point perspective and it can be quite nice. But again, notice how everything is like, you know, what if you wanted a building in this shape, right? Well, you can't do that unless you're doing what I just did, which is breaking it basically. And I didn't get it quite perfect, but you get the idea. You could technically have a building that's angled. So yeah, it's I'm not a huge fan of using it. It's also but it's not bad. It's definitely nice it exists. I have used it before. You can only draw cubes. Yeah, I mean you can break that and do like this, and then you can say, oh, there's that, right? And so this line is in perspective again. Or if you did, you know, if you did something really tall like this line would be in perspective. So this one is, you know, it snaps. It's either horizontal or at an angle. So sometimes you can still, yeah, I mean, but yeah, mostly it's only cubes. And I think curvilinear does the same thing where it'll snap it to like the nearest angle that you're going to. So if I was going from this point to this point, it would like bend like this, but it'd be fluid. I don't exactly know how that one works. But anyway, I've just never been a huge fan of using this. It's not bad for blocking and stuff, but it can give it kind of an inorganic look. And I find sketching stuff, oops. I find sketching stuff sort of just, oh, I'm still on the perspective tool. I was like, why can't I blank that out? You can turn off the grid though. I don't want to like, you know, I don't want to completely hate on the tool because you can turn it off. So you can literally just toggle the layer on and off and it'll unsnap or snap. So I think if you use it well, like there are ways to still be loose. But I think in the, I guess I feel like a lot of perspective grids are good in the early stages, right? They're not a late stage painting thing. And the early stage is also when you want the most fluidity. And so I would say it's better to be less accurate in your perspective and have like the overall composition and idea and then fix perspective later than to be rigid and sticking. You know, like if you had to choose sort of which side to fall on, I would want the more loose side, which yes, it might not be as accurate, but and you can always go back and fix it later if you need. Yeah, I mean, it is good to check errors and stuff later. Yeah, I kind of agree, but I think that early stage, you want to be able to just like, you know, if you're trying to sketch a scene, you know, just sketch the scene the way that you want it, you know, like, okay, here's the things, you know, it's going to come straight at me, you know, here's my blocks, but maybe this one turns as it goes down, you know, this block is going to turn, this one's going to turn a little bit more, and this one's gonna, you know, be horizontal. And like, is this perfect? Well, no, of course not. But there's a fluidity to it, right? Where I feel like you can sketch a little better and you can sort of try to get your ideas down without being perfectly rigid. And then from there, you can be like, okay, let's go and try to fix some of these, you know? So I would rather do that, right? I guess I don't feel like I want everything to be stuck that way. I don't know. I have used it a bit. Let's see. Just Fiction says, I used the perspective ruler heavily once, and it was so much of work, but it definitely forced parallel objects to be drawn, which fortunately worked for the piece. Yeah, and I think it works sometimes better for some pieces than others. I don't think it's bad by any means. I just rarely do I find myself thinking, I need the, I want the perspective tool. Uh, but there are some times, and I have used it, and I probably will use it in the future as well. That said, I think it's cool to have these. Yeah, it totally is. It's totally handy. I guess I just put a bit of a premium on like that early sketch phase of sort of having a looseness, explore. I also like exploring, and there's something to be said that the more painting that I do, the further I move away from wanting things to be accurate and wanting things to be more believable, right? There's a difference to me in those two words. Accuracy is like, oh, look, my lines are perfectly straight. Everything is going exactly to the same. I think it was she's not here right now, but Sarah, she shared a piece just recently. She did an interior painting, and her I don't remember what prompted it, but she said that like she didn't do perfect perspective. Like she had her scene, let's say it was 1 point perspective, and this wall was going over here, right? And then this wall, which I'll make in a different color, was going over here. It's like it was it was a street, right? Right? So yeah, so it was like a fake 1 point perspective. Right? And it opened it up. It makes you be able to see a bit more, and it was a street view, but it didn't look wrong, right? It's just yeah, it's to give more space and it gives it more room because these things are like opening up like you're taking a box. It's like making a panorama, not a panorama. You know those things that you made as a kid, like the presentation boards, and you opened them up. It's like that, right? You're opening up, but you're still giving the illusion that it's a street. And actually, I think there's an argument to be made that this is actually somewhat how our eyes see stuff, because we have two eyes and they're not like you can see a little bit of the more of the left side and the right side of an object depending on where you are, and it's not exactly 1 point because you have two separate eyes. So there is an argument to be made that this isn't actually inaccurate. But even so, even if this were inaccurate, there's a reason that it works, and it works because it does something for your painting that is you want, right? It allows you more room basically. So I'm not always on the camp of like, oh, things need to be accurate. You need accurate lighting. I don't agree with that. I don't think you need accurate lighting. You might want believable lighting, but you also might want to push it in an inaccurate way to make it even more believable, right? Sometimes reality is so unbelievable or confusing that in fact making it less accurate it makes it more easy to understand. So that's like a thing that happens. And just see any real life optical illusion is my case example for that. If there's ever a real life optical illusion that's not quite clear what you're looking at, you could probably make it more clear by changing it and making it less accurate. So yeah, anyway, that's my rant over. Also, I don't know if the rant thing is working, right? I don't think it is. Let me try it. I did fiddle with it today before stream, but I don't think I got it working. Pretty sure it's not working. No, it's still not working. Dang it. I don't know what's wrong with that thing. Just Fiction says, yeah, I like to prioritize what looks good and best translates to what I'm trying to convey rather than what would be realistic. Yeah. And I think Just Fiction, can I bring up your work on screen? Because I think you are such a good example. I ask and then I do it. Look at Just Fiction's work. I think Just Fiction is a great example of this, and I think just character designers in general are really, really good at this, or really any designer and concept artist. Like, look at this. I don't know if this is your own character or not. I have no idea. Like, I don't know if you designed this character or if this is a fan art. I have no clue. But either way, maybe it is fan art. You said some Billies from Deadlock. Okay, so it's fan art. But either way, look like, yeah, it's from Deadlock. Okay, that's fine. But like either way, look at the shape, like the designs and the shapes, and I don't know. It's so good. I think it's so great. And like, is it, is every wrinkle perfectly accurate to what it would actually look like? Probably not. I don't think knee pants do that with holes in them. That's not what happens. But you know what? At no point do I notice that unless I'm actively trying to point it out, right? Like that just looks cool, right? It looks cool. It looks like good shapes, but you're not like, that's not how fabric works, right? I don't know what voice that is. They don't explode. Like you mean that's not how fabric actually just sticks up straight in the air randomly and doesn't flop down? No. But like, why does it matter? Right? Um and I guess my point is, at no point do you think that like you don't your belief is not ruined when you see the fabric do that, right? They're just good shapes anyway. Yeah, love the work. Amazing stuff. Oh, you did more. I too made some Billy art. Wait, we have more Billy art. Amazing. Look at all the Billy art. I don't know who Billy is, but apparently Billy from Deadlock. This is cool. I'm loving it. I don't even know what Deadlock is. But yeah. So, my point is, reality is overrated. Or accuracy is overrated. That's my point. Billy just looks very cool and is very fun to draw. He looks like it. It's a cool character. Speaking of fun to draw, I am having fun, but also I am a little tired. I don't quite think I'm going to end stream yet, but I'm getting there. I do want to say thank you everyone for hanging out, though, even though I'm not ending yet. And it means a lot. And hope if anyone's making any art right now, though, I would love to see. Also, speaking of making art, let's add some details and stuff. What if I did like a bright lines? Okay, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna make a new layer, and I'm just gonna start doodling on these. Making some shapes. This, and this, in no particular... Okay, why can't I draw straight lines? Straight lines are the bane of me. This is why digital's so nice. How do you draw straight lines without the undo button? I'm just making shapes just to get some ideas of what things could look like. Drawing some patterns on this. Hopefully I'm on the right layer. Reductivism. That's a good word. Deadlock says, Just Fiction. Deadlock is an unannounced Valve third-person MOBA game that's been in invite-only closed beta for a while. I don't play it myself, but I love the character design. Oh, interesting. Wait, Valve's making another MOBA game? Because I know Dota 2 is Valve. MOBAs are fun. I mean, if you're okay with terrible teammates who drag you down and make you lose games and rage. Just kidding. No. No, MOBAs are great. I played a lot of MOBAs in my day. Anything with teammates is rough, I'll tell you. And I'm kidding about them dragging you down and making you lose. I will say the thing that I've learned a lot about just learning how to learn from MOBAs. MOBAs I have gratitude towards the genre of MOBAs, because if you want to win more games, you have to learn to really focus on the things that matter and the things that you can control, and not the things that you can't control, like what your stupid teammates do, right? So like you have to learn to sort of how to focus your goals and your skills and break things down into smaller, actual manageable, like actionable steps, instead of just like, oh, I wish I won more games, and then I guess there's like a very childlike concept, and I mentioned this earlier with games when we were talking about strategy games. If I don't have a concept of like, so in Age, I mentioned in Age of Empires, there's counters. There's like, like a rock paper scissors, right? Where like some units beat other units, which might beat another unit that will beat the first unit, right? So it's like spearmen beat horses, which beat archers, which beat spearmen, right? And so there's this loop of like, you build this unit, your opponent builds this unit to counter you, and then you can counter them, and then they can counter you back, right? And so you want to mix and match, right? Anyway, there's that whole concept. If to me, if I don't understand that, like if I don't have a concept of like an intuitive sense of that, there's nothing that I don't know how to practice. I don't know how to get better, right? It just feel like, oh, I'm making units, but until you start realizing there's like steps to get and strategies to have. And a lot of times when I'm playing some games like MOBAs, like when I was first starting out, I didn't really know how to get better. It's like, oh, I'm doing stuff, I'm killing people sometimes, but like I'm not always winning, and I don't really know why, and I don't know how. Like it was so easy to just go to the obvious thing, which is like my teammates could have been better, right? Or all you know to look at is like your kill death ratio, instead of actually having concepts you can act on. And so anyway, I'm trying to tie this back to art. In art is a lot of the same. Sometimes you just paint and you have no concept of like what you can focus on. And it's like sometimes my art looks good and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't know why, right? And so they taught you how to like actually analyze your what you're doing and make goals and strategies and try to have a reason behind what you do and update your reason and your logic as you get better. And it's like that kind of thinking was really, really helpful for me to get better at art. And a lot of things now. And also like playing lots of different characters to sort of familiarize yourself, which lets you try different things. And yes, sometimes you're gonna lose games, but that's okay because you're learning in the process, and then you start winning more. And just like in art, right? You try lots of things, you paint lots of stuff, you make lots of ugly art, but you learn in the process also. And of course, the fundamentals, right? So yeah, anyway, I guess my point is that I think MOBAs were really useful for me. I think they helped me learn how to learn a little bit. Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be. In some ways, it doesn't even have to be what is true. It can also just be like it's more like thinking like a scientist. Like you need to have a reason behind what you do. You could so for example, your reason could be, if I put green in my painting, it's going to make it have more depth. Now, those of you who know art is probably like, that's ridiculous. That makes no sense. But so what? Start with that. Start with that as if that's the truth. Try it. See if it holds true. If it doesn't, abandon the idea and find another thing to observation that you might find true, right? Like sometimes it's just coming up with some random justification for why something works and then putting it to the test and trying to break it. And if it doesn't break and it seems to hold true, then you can treat it as true for a while, right? Like and the better sort of, and over time those models will update and you'll have better decision making. But you need something, right? You need some model to make a choice on. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to put a brushstroke randomly. It might be, I'm putting this brushstroke because I think it's good for perspective. Maybe it's not, and maybe you'll learn that it's not. But eventually, but you still need to start there. It's like, I think it's better to have an explanation for what you're doing, even if it's wrong, than not having an explanation for what you're doing, even if technically it looks good. Like, I think because that's how you learn to reproduce what you're making, right? That's a skill, right? Is you have a way of thinking about something that you can do over and over. Anyway, that's That's another rant right there. Here, we got a scene for this one. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. But yeah, anyway, I just think having that like that reproducibility in art and being, I mean, that's, to me, that's what skill in art is, right? It's like if you have a goal in mind, how likely are you able to achieve that goal, right? Good artists can achieve that goal quite often, most of the time, in fact. It might still be tough, it might be difficult, but they'll get there, and they can reliably get there. A beginner might get there occasionally, but they're not, maybe not always. Maybe they don't always know what goes wrong when it goes wrong, and they don't know how to problem solve it. And so yeah, I think a lot of that type of skill is just having a good understanding so that when you have to make choices, they're sort of grounded in something. Okay. That's my rant. LOL. Tedical, how's it going? Long time no see. Hey Jay, what are your thoughts about doing silhouette exercises? I think they're great. Silhouette exercise? I mean, I think any exercise, if you don't find it dreadfully boring, I think it's great. And even if you do find it dreadfully boring, it's probably okay. Like doing the black and white shapes first, shapes and stuff, then adding the midtones. So yeah, I think it's great, especially for like compositional. So I mean, I think there's different ways you can do it. I think if you're talking about, so like, I mean, I think it depends on what your brain is focused on, right? But I think there's different things. One of those things could be composition, which this is not for you, Tedical. This is just like me rambling. Let's bring up an image. Just a random image. Here's an image. Whoops. So you could do something like this, where you're just like studying a composition. Let's say you find this composition nice, and you're purely doing like dark shapes here. You know, this shape is in dark. Maybe you actually say this shape is in light, actually, because this is in light. Right? And then there's a shadow here, and then a shadow here. And then there's some shadows going this way and that way. I'm not going to get them all in here, but you'll see that there are some here, right? There's little small shadows here. And basically everything else is in light, right? There's light back here. Maybe there's some little shadows back here. I actually can't quite tell. But mostly, right, this is all in light. I don't know what the background is considered. Honestly, I'm afraid to put it in light because it's going to ruin the silhouette. But I'm gonna do it strategically here and leave a little gap because, yeah. So anyway, then we have the light back here. Maybe we'll make that a mid-tone because I'm gonna cheat. But like something like this is, I think, a good exercise to help break down composition. But this is more about composition, right? This isn't so much about form. But then there's also, like, if you see a square, right, like a cube, this is something that I sometimes talk about. If you see like a cube here, sometimes even if one side is in light, like this, and one side is in shadow, like this, sometimes it's still nice to come in here and just from like a shape design perspective, just understand that this is all one shape, right? And sort of see what shape that makes in sort of a two-dimensional way. This is not about composition, but this is like, what is the two-dimensional shape that I just drew? Oh, I drew like a hexagon, right? Six sides, right? I drew is that six? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. And so like learning that like this three-dimensional object is also this two-dimensional shape, that's a useful skill too. And so I think you can kind of do both, right? Both are sort of doing a black and white version of a thing. And I think there's probably other ways that things you could get out of doing like a black and white study. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great to do like little mini studies and break things down. And again, even if the concept isn't even a real concept, you might just be like, let me color all the things that feel green one color and all the things that feel orange another color. This one feels kind of bluish, even though it's not blue, but I'm going to color it another color. Um, this is obviously blue, so I'm going to color that blue. This is blue, I'm going to color that blue. Oh, there's a little bit of orange here. Is this a useful thing? I don't know, probably not. But at the same time, you might learn something, right? You might come up with some sort of half-baked hypothesis or concept that is like, hey, this seems to be a fun thing. It seems to be the case that the painting, even a painting like a real photo, consists of, I don't know, 3 colors. That's not a bad spot to start. Is it true that every painting has to have 3 colors? Well, of course not. But you might find that, like, most scenes don't have that many solid colors. Again, is this useful? No idea. Probably not, because I just made up that concept. But a lot of studies are that, where you're just trying to find patterns, you're trying to find concepts and think about things in abstract ways and break things down and simplify and sort of think about how it might be useful to you in some future painting. I don't know, a lot of times you don't really know what you're going to get from a particular study or an exercise. Sometimes it's, I think going through, yeah, it could be dividing. Yeah, I mean, that would be far more useful, Drovzilla. Dividing the painting into warm and cool tones would be far more useful. Yeah, maybe if you did that exercise and just did it randomly, you would be like, hey, some of these are like very yellow and some of them are very cool. Oh, wait, maybe this is a concept, right? And that's kind of how, I mean, because somebody had to come up with those concepts the first time, right? And so I don't like, there's always this it's almost a thought experiment, but like I know people like to sort of look to the pros and be like, oh, what are they doing? What strategies are they using when they paint or when they play this game or when they do this thing? But like, what do you think the pros are doing? How did they come up with their strategies? At some point, they're having to try things out, come up with little hypotheses, and they have to formulate models in their brain that are going to work, right? And eventually they find what works for them, and then they communicate that to other people. But like, there is still that exploring and trying to think about things in a different way. So like, it's not like they're just asking other people how they got good. Like, at some point, someone is the one sort of like trying. And in art, I think a lot of times you need to be the person to try the things on yourself a little bit. And you have to like just try stuff, and obviously look to the pros, look to the age-old wisdoms of art that people have been doing for hundreds of years, because a lot of those are really good bits of knowledge and concepts to learn. But I also think just learning to think abstractly, because there's just so much. There's just so much stuff you could think about that it I don't know. I think it's useful. So, yeah. It's like a big exercise in thinking abstractly. Do I suggest so you suggested doing robots to start with? Yeah, I think if you're trying to practice perspective, drawing robots is a great way to do it, because it's basically like building blocky structures, or buildings works. But I'm kind of lost when doing this blocking method. Like, I don't know how to add form or carve. So I think if you're struggling with doing the blocky method, I suggest looking up some basic like YouTube videos on how to draw in perspective, because obviously if you're struggling, I mean, that was not a good perspective, but like if you're struggling to draw forms in perspective, there are a lot of videos that will teach you kind of how to do that. And a lot of them are very boring and dry. They're, literally things like, put a vanishing point, or make a horizon line, which is your eye line, right? You'll see a lot of people call it your eye line, which is, where your eyes are. So you have 2 eyes. They're not like that, but they're, this is just where your eyes are. It's eye level, right? And then, generally, if you have a 1-point perspective or 2-point, most objects will have a couple, but if you were to put them at random spots, say here and here, doesn't matter at first, literally does not matter. The whole point of putting them randomly is just, eventually you'll understand why, but at first you could just start doing this, right? These will go to the random spots. And if you make the shape too big, it's not going to look good. By the way, it's going to be all distorted. You know, if you go down here, for example, you're going to have a really distorted box because it's like these crazy angles that don't look very square. And there's a lot of knowledge and theory about how to you know, a 30-degree angle and like how to not to make your shapes distorted. But I think if for starters, you know, just trying it, seeing what, like, just trying different sizes, different scales. You know, if you find that your boxes are too distorted, try zooming in and making your box smaller. See what happens. Sort of get a feel for it and be like, oh, maybe this one feels less distorted, right? Maybe my box, you know, maybe this box that was very distorted was too big for how close these focal points were. But if you zoom way in and do the same thing, suddenly the box looked good, right? Oh, this one didn't look good. Right? Suddenly the box looks better if you zoom way in. So maybe I need my focal points about this far away from my, right? So there's some things, like if you understand the basics of how to set up focal points, there is a little bit of trial and error. And obviously there are more like mathematical and very like dry explanations and how to set things up. But most people, when they're drawing in perspective, as far as I know, do not initially draw their first subject of like planning their 30-degree arch or whatever from their viewers point of view or whatever. I don't know. I think most people don't start that way. But when you first start drawing perspective, I do think it helps to sort of go through the motions, and sort of try to construct things and be like, oh, this one goes here. And also trying to think about like, you know, different lines go to different vanishing points. So like that one goes there. These lines that are green are going to go to this green vanishing point, right? Because they're on that form. And then of course, if you have like another vanishing point, like a 3-point perspective, it might go here. I wouldn't worry about that for now. And that might go way up here, you know. That would be like your 3-point perspective vanishing point. Anyway, hopefully you get the idea that I'm trying to communicate. But yeah, so sometimes just learning to like think about in 3-point or in perspective like that, where you're just sort of constructing things, taking it really simple. But yeah, I would just watch like a, you know, like a modern day James perspective tutorial. He has some that are pretty good, I think. It really walks through the basics of like this concept. I think that's super useful. But you do need some ground knowledge to even begin practicing it. Because, yeah, if you can't just start drawing things and stacking shapes on top of each other, you're probably, there's gonna be some. But again, you could also just ditch perspective completely and do isometric perspective. Every line is at a 30-degree angle. I don't know, probably 30-degree angle from the base. Is that 30 degrees? Let's call it 30. Is that 30? I don't know. It's something like that, right? Everything is at a 30-degree angle. There is no perspective. It's isometric, right? And then from here, you could just copy and paste. I mean, I'm not saying copy and paste, but like when you don't have things in perspective, everything can be stacked on top, right? And so if this is what you're struggling with, like, how do I know where to cut in here? Like, if I wanted to make a cave here, how do I know to draw that? Is that what you're struggling with? This thing? Because this I think it will click it eventually. I don't know how to make it click exactly, but a lot of it's thinking about these lines. So you could color code them, but you're thinking about different lines as different things. So if I wanted to cut into this shape, I would draw a line here, and then I would need 2 wall lines. So I would need a line of let's say these green colors, right? I would need 2 green colors here. And then there's a color that cuts across in the top, which let's call it yellow, right? So that needs to come across in the top. And then I need another green line, which is a vertical line, right? So that needs to come down. And then, I need another yellow line back here because it's this angle, right? And so there becomes a point where you start thinking about the lines towards the vanishing points they're supposed to be going, right? And I think that just takes some practice to like train yourself to. I think I remember doing this, like it clicked for me once when I was drawing windows. It took a while with windows because I was like, oh, there's a like I knew I wanted the windows, so I start out by drawing the shape on the form. So like if you have a face here, not a literal face, but like a block, right? The block has 6 faces. And if you just on the face draw the square, then you can just start drawing the rest of the things, right? So I think isometric helps. So not thinking about perspective, just thinking about, because vanishing points is tough, like trying to make things converge. You can do it in 1 point. And yeah, you can color code your lines, anything to get the repetition so that when you start drawing, you draw, let's say this line. Whoops, let's go back. Right? So when you first start and you start drawing this line, you should be immediately thinking of like, this is the same as these lines, right? And so there's sort of a, like this line here. Also, if you're doing this in perspective, this line is parallel to this line. So if this were in perspective, these lines, gosh, I can't do this slow enough. Sorry. So like here, I'm going to draw these. I realize I'm not keeping my lines the same color coded, so this might be confusing, but okay, there we go. We've got colors here that I can color pick from. When I do this, I am thinking about very briefly, and I know this one's not in perspective, so it's kind of hard to tell, but like I'm thinking about making the yellow lines converge. Then my very next line, I'm very quickly thinking about, oh, my green lines need to converge because they're or in this case they're parallel. And oh, my purple lines need to converge. Oh, back to yellow. Make sure these are converging. That way I'm keeping my perspective consistent. And oh, green lines needs to converge. Oh, yellow lines converge. And so as I'm drawing these things, there's sort of like a... I'm not forgetting of the orientation in space, right? It's sort of like I've internalized it at some point, and it doesn't come naturally. You'll eventually become more comfortable doing that, I think. It's not easy. Also, I'm so far behind on chat. Sorry. So with lines, I can kind of do them, but with doing blobs and shapes right away, it's hard. Yeah, I mean it is, and it is hard, and it you get better at it. The 2D outline of an isometric cube is a perfect hexagon. The faces of an isometric cube are rhombus. Gotcha. Good to know. The bane of your existence. Oh, the box challenge. Oh, I don't think you have to do a box challenge. I just think so. Sorry, I should catch people up to speed on what I was talking about. So my initial recommendation was to just draw something that you find fun, but do it in a boxy way, right? So like maybe you want to do buildings, draw some buildings, but make them boxes, right? And stack them on top of each other, do some skyscrapers, whatever, right? If you really like characters, maybe draw some boxy characters, make these the legs and, build them up, connect them with a big old torso, and you're getting yourself a robot here, right? Just silly little drawings that are kind of in perspective, hopefully, or in this case, isometric view. And that was my suggestion. That way you can still draw what you want to draw, right? It wasn't about accuracy. It's more, I mean, maybe accuracy is a little bit of a goal, but it was more about just like getting you in the habit of drawing some primitive forms. Maybe you do like the cylinders. This is a very weird character here. Maybe you do another top here, something like this. I don't know what I'm drawing here. Don't hate me. Maybe we got some big ol' eyes, and we got Wally. Done. We just made Wally. Look at that. I didn't want Wally. But so I think this kind of exercise is fun because it's training that sort of muscle memory of thinking like, oh, this shape needs to go this way, right? These need to go this way. And then you start thinking about overlapping shapes and, you know, other squares going in, you know, oh, which edge is being lost? And it's not easy, right? Like you'll have to probably draw the full cubes, and then you'll have to draw like the base on the bottom, and then you'll have to draw them down, and then you'll have to erase a bit, right? Then you'll erase all of this stuff. But at some point you're gonna start getting a sense of like where the shapes are and what shapes can overlap in front of each other if you do this enough. And this kind of thing, I think, is just good for like training that. And yeah, you can do it whatever you want. You can do little robots, you can do buildings, you could do a bunch of scene, you know, you could just do a bunch of blocks in a two-dimensional space, right? Just like on a table or something. That might be boring for you. Maybe not, I don't know, but just doing something where maybe some of them are big blocks and some of them are little blocks, or, you know, you don't even have to worry about rotating them. Just get in the habit of like thinking about this as being parallel, right? These are parallel, by the way, because they're converging, right? Even though the green lines technically are not parallel, they are when you draw a cube, right? It's that kind of training. It's just a matter of doing it a lot, and I realize I'm probably making it look kind of simple, but it's you will get to the point where you don't have to think too much about like your basic boxes. At least that's the goal, and I think you will get there. Oh, from what I understand, I think you're using values to add form and carve. Oh yeah. So there is an area. So yeah. So in this, I do use values to show form. So that would be like, you know, taking a box like this and basically saying one side's gonna be dark, or let's say this side's light because that's where the light's gonna come from. And then this, you know, if the light's coming from this angle, right? Maybe this side is slightly less light and this side is pretty dark, right? And then if I had this shape here, right? This shape would be in darkness, right? And then there would be that line here, which we may not be able to see, but I'm going to draw it anyway. And there we go. Oh, I forgot something though. I forgot this. And then maybe there would be a shadow here or something. But, and so yeah, there is some of this. And then maybe if you really knew the direction of the light, you could say, oh, there'd be a little shadow under here too. That's like being cast down here. That might be a bit more advanced, but yeah, and then yeah, so there is an element of learning to cast a shadow. I think it was Marshall Vandruff, not Druft, no T there. Marshall Vandruff mentioned, he mentioned the fundamentals like building a house, right? First you construct the frame of the house, and then you put the sheetrock on it. Right? This is where you're just putting the walls on. You're literally just making them solid by in this case putting values. And then you can start doing things like painting it, and that's where you start getting materials and texture and different, you know, different types of things in here. Most people are not going to be putting texture on their house before they've put up the walls, right? If it's not too much to ask, like, how do you do that, Wally, without lines? Well, same way. I mean, it's not as easy. Oh, what's happening? Is that a sub or a raid? Are we getting raid? Hold on. I'm so behind. What's happening? Ah, It's a sub. Thank you, Tentacle. I appreciate it. Thank you for the sub. So I would start with outlines, but you know, if you want to do it with, if you want to like, I don't know, paint the way that I'm painting, um, I mean, it would be the same. So I would typically find a pattern, like, so for example, if I were to do that, I would start like this. Right now I don't really have much light, right? And then I would like, oh wait, I need a light source. So I would pick a light source. In this case, I'm gonna do, I don't know. I like this side as light. Let's do that side light, right? So I need light, right? So here's the light. So here's our box. So I would start making the box, and then I would do the same thing. I would draw the square up here. I would pick a light side, paint it up here. Pick a dark side, paint it up here. And if I wanted to do a side in front, here, let's move it down a bit. I'm running out of space here, so I'm just erasing, oops. I'm just erasing the stuff as I get to it. And then if I want to do like a light side or another dark side, right in front, because I know it's going to overlap. So some of this is based on experience. Like I know there's an overlap right here, right? This shape overlaps the other. You can't see the bottom of it, for example. So I would just take the dark shape and paint it straight over. And I know, and that feels scary, but I know that that's going to be there, and it starts coming together a little bit better here. And sometimes this edge here isn't super clear, so you can add an extra line if you need. Color change equals form change. Exactly. And sometimes just establishing the colors that you're going to have. Oh, I need the top layer, so I'm going to grab that color change down there, which is that darker gray. It's there. So that's kind of how I would do it. And obviously, I'm not going to draw the whole Wally. And of course, you can do additional things. You can add little nuance there. You know, sometimes you need like a little bit of, you know, you want a little bit of light there or something to shine so you can see those overlaps. But something like that, again, not perfect, but that's not the goal. That's kind of what I would do. And that's sort of the thought process where, like, again, if I wanted to, let's say I then took this, and this is going to look a little weird all of a sudden, but bear with me. Imagine I were to draw a shape like this. What does that imply to you? Now, you should, especially if I drew it in perspective, right? Because I'm drawing this line in perspective, this line's in perspective. This is going to look like it's a flat surface, right? Because it's the same surface as this, right? It's this same surface here. So all of a sudden, there's like, I'm missing something here. I'm missing this, which would not be in light, by the way, but I'm still missing that shape, right? And this is experience that I know that this is going to be an overlapping shape here. But all of a sudden, you can start seeing how I'm carving in. Now, most of the time, the carving is not like this, I will admit. In actual painting, most of the time, it's more like... how do I word it? Like, it's more of like a dark is a hole. So if I want a hole here, I'll put the darkness in there. If that makes sense. And then I might add some light after the fact in here. But like, so it's kind of different, but I'm still taking the same values that I already have, depending on the shape that I want. You know, if this is the background layer punching through, it's now a donut shape. So this eventually you get it sort of turns into sculpting. Obviously, I wouldn't put the light there. I would do something like that because I'm thinking about the light. So in actual painting, knowing that that's my light source, I would start also carving out the shadow. But this is where I start skipping steps, right? This is where I think it starts looking really complicated because you start getting someone who's skipping a step of the constructing and just start painting these shapes in. And suddenly there's cast shadows and, you know, this shadow is darker because it's, even though it's this even though it's the form that's in red, this one is not in light and this one is in light. And then, you know, now we're doing stuff like this and, you know, you're adding some rudimentary shadows And suddenly it starts looking more realistic, but it's also much more complicated, right? This is not simply saying, this is in light. Let's paint this form in light. Well, this form is in part light and part shadow. If that makes sense. So that's sort of how I think about sculpting. And in some ways, I'm still thinking about it like drawing the forms, right? Sometimes I will start by sketching in the square. For example, if I wanted another shape just like this one, but I want it on this face, sometimes I'll start by sketching in pure black. Is it going to be black? No, it's not going to be black. But I start that, and then I start adding the light. I start saying, okay, well, we needed that one form over here, so this form needs to show. So I'm going to draw something that's a little bit lighter than black because I need it to show that there's some form. And so I'll draw some form. Oh, this needs to have a different light, so let's put some light there, or some shadow, or whatever. And then you just start drawing it, right? Maybe I do keep it black, right? Maybe it could have stayed black the whole time. And it really was just that form change that was important, right? And so sometimes it's that, like, it is a bit of drawing. Anyway. Hopefully that kind of clears it up. I don't know if it did. But that's the gist of it. And obviously I would, then I would have drawn another shape over here, and I could have done the same thing with this shape, and then, a thingy like this, and then another one, and then another one. Oh, I think a package has arrived for me. My vacuum cleaner. I heard them drop it outside my door. I should go pick that up before a neighbor steals it. I don't think a neighbor would steal it, right? And I would just duplicate that in this case because it's not... I'm doing this super rough, by the way, if you can't tell. And then up here, what did I have? I had a big body, I think. So this would all just be dark. This would be light. Again, just like I would be if I was drawing it, right? My thought process is that edge, right? My thought process is here, then here, and here. And I'm just building it up as I go. Yeah, hopefully, I mean, yeah, hopefully when you try to apply it, it will make more sense. But I think if you're struggling with like drawing the basic forms, then that's more of like, go back to sort of, watch a rudimentary video on how to set up vanishing points, and just be aware that they converge, right? Parallel lines converge. That's like the mantra, right? Parallel lines converge in perspective. So if you want something to be in perspective, make them converge. And just sort of train, like if you draw enough cubes, there will be a point where when you draw this line that I'm drawing right now in red, your brain will be making it converge with this red line because you connect them, right? You're like, those are the same red line. And you won't draw that line red. That line will be the same color as this line, right? Because you know that this line, the green line and the red line are not the same line. They are on different parts of the form, right? And that green line is not the same line as this orange line. This orange line is the frame of the door, right? And there becomes a point where you will get these mixed up at some point, and you will like try to make your red lines converge at the same place, but they're different lines, and you're like, why is this not working? And you're like, what's happening? Why is this red line? I'm making this red line converge up here, and like, well, no, because you're trying to make them, right? They're different lines. They're going in different directions. But eventually you will start to sort of think about like all these red lines are the same, right? They're all the same line. There's a fake one there, right? There's the invisible lines back here. Right? They're back here, whether you can see them or not. All of these lines are the same, right? All of these green lines are the same. And it might even help to do this, to go over and just like start sketching them, because you might find that you're missing some, like these lines right? You might find that you're missing some of these like interior lines here. Because it does take a while for your brain to sort of start to like think about them all as the same. And then these are, of course, all the verticals are all going to be yellow. Or whatever color you want. It doesn't have to be color at all, but just thinking about them as congruent lines. Anyway, that's my rant for today. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Your cheesecake. Oh, cheesecake brush. Oh, is that the? No, that's not mine. That's the NYX Echo brush. It is a fun brush. NYX Keo. Is that the one? Cheesecake? I don't think I use cheesecake. I think I use baked apple lemon cheesecake. Is that the one? I don't use this brush. I use the so sometimes I'll use the baked apple custard brush, which is a little laggy for me right now, but it has it's very like it's quite nice. It's good for painterly stuff. But no, mostly I've been using that brush by Zach Retz. Wait, we had a Jed Talk without Jed Talk? I know, Siren Night Sparrow, I'm sorry, I goofed up. Here, I'll put it up for a moment, though. It's how I conclude my Jed Talks. We'll go back to this. Me and my presentation of random stuff. But yeah, how are you, Siren? Hope you're doing well. How large is your canvas now? My canvas is, well, this one is 3,000 by 2,000. And this canvas is 3,700 by 2,100. So a little over 3,000. You're doing well? That's good. Glad to hear it. But yeah, I think perspective stuff is definitely one of those things where you do it enough and you really do just start to I think it was who was it? I think it was Just Fiction, wasn't it? Who said that's how you see like an artist in quotes? Yeah. Or no, that's Spatial Notes. But yeah, I think a lot of like thinking like I don't like the term seeing like an artist because it's more about like we're all seeing the same stuff. It's more about thinking, right? You're observing, you're paying attention to the stuff, right? So you're sorry, Just Fiction, didn't mean to call you out of lurk. But yeah, I think a lot of like learning to think and see like an artist is basically that. It's thinking about, you know, instead of thinking about, oh, this thing is a square, it's this thing is a cube with forms that cut in and out, and there's these different planes. Red name represent. Yeah, I just saw red and I was like, yep, that's Just Fiction, but no, it wasn't. And yeah, it is. It's learning to like have all these different concepts in your head so that when you look at something like in real life, you can like almost trace. I mean, I don't actually do this because I don't think about the colors, but like you could look at an object in real life, like do I have an object with it? Here, I have this. I don't even know what's in it. I'm afraid to. Let me grab this. I have to reach around my monitor. Let me just see what's in here. Random toothpicks. This is the thing that I got from my grandma. It's been sitting on my desk for a long time. So I have this box, right? Literal just box. It has a little thingy on it. But like this, it'd be like looking at this thing and like just paying attention to the edges and be like, oh, this edge is gonna be in the front. Or like, you know, if I were to paint this thing, this back edge here is going this way, and this is a different type of edge. And almost like trying to imagine they were different colored edges that corresponded to this thing, right? You're just thinking of it in a way that is very unusual to think of when you know, most people would look at a box and say, oh, it's a box. What is it for? What does it do? Right? But you might look at it and say, how would I draw this? Am I above it? Am I below it? Can I see the top of it? How would I draw those lines converging? Something that I do that makes me look like an idiot. I haven't done it lately. But will be like if you're walking down. How do I work here? Let me bring up MapCrunch because I can show you better. Actually, no, I'm not going to do MapCrunch. I will do this. I'll just take a photo. Here we go. So let's say you're walking down here. No, that's not a good one because that's not square. Hold on. MapCrunch. We will go to MapCrunch. We'll go to Google Street View for this example. Here we go. Oh, that's not a street. Let's go to a street. Here we are in a street. Boom, we're in a street. So say you were walking down the street and you saw something like this, right? This shed, this building. Now in here it's probably easy because it's already converted to 2 dimensions for you. But if you were to draw this, your brain in real life would not be doing what I'm doing here. So your brain, when you see this image, you are going to see these as parallel, right? You're going to see all of these lines, right, as completely, actually they're pretty parallel here, but you're going to see, your brain is going to see these as parallel. You're not going to think of this line as going upward, right, towards the top of the canvas. Your brain is going to see it as flat against the horizon, which it isn't, because, right? So what can help is, at least for me, is to literally put my hands up like this and make like a viewfinder. So like you're creating a little viewfinder with your thumb and your finger, and then, oh, here, wait, thumb's on the side. Thumb here, finger here, right? And then other thumb here, and then finger here, right? You're making little like a viewfinder, and then you're paying attention to the angle in this box. And so you're saying, look, this perspective is going at a weird angle, and this is also going at a weird angle, and they're kind of going upwards at an angle. Because in real life, you're seeing this as flat, right? Like your brain is seeing this as on the ground. You're not seeing this as a 45-degree angle, right? Nothing about this scene, if I were to draw this, to think about drawing this as a 45-degree angle is crazy. Like that, if you're actually looking at this view, that is not the view that you see. You don't see this. Your brain isn't comprehending that this is almost a vertical line, right? This is a literal vertical line. Well, not anymore. This line right here is vertical. If you were to draw this, trying to train yourself to think, oh, that would be a vertical line. This line is at an angle, right? Again, it's easy when we're looking at a 2-dimensional projection, but in real life, it takes a bit of work, at least for me. Maybe you crazy people are good at this, but like learning to think about like, oh, this horizon line is going downward, this is going upward. There's a, I don't know, it takes a lot of work for me to do that at first, and then eventually you get better at it. But I think just going out and like, I mean, this is why painting from life is probably so good. But anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I appreciate it. And thank you for the follow. Somebody just followed. We had a few good TED Talks there at the end. But yeah, I think training yourself, though, to think and see like an artist is definitely the, I mean, that's like all of it, right? That's like almost the, I mean, obviously there's practice, you gotta practice, but so much of it is trying to wrap your head around this unintuitive thing, which is communicating in 3 dimensions on a 2D page. It really is, it's not easy. Beautiful Jed Talk, thanks. I had fun. I'm sure most of you lurking and listening did not, you probably didn't need to you probably knew most of that. But it's nice to repeat. And also, even just like me repeating it can help me make sure I understand what I'm talking about. So yeah, I think it's useful. I never really get tired of of re-listening to explanations of like fairly rudimentary or like uh what do you call it? Fundamental concepts in art. Because I feel like every time someone explains it, it's going to be a little bit different, and it might make something click in a slightly different way. Um, Speaking of which, this is a perfect segue into tomorrow morning. I watch art videos in Discord just for like an hour, and typically, but somewhere between 3 and 4, 10 to 20 minute art videos, just YouTube stuff that I've saved throughout the week. Uh, just random topics, nothing in particular. Sometimes lighting, sometimes composition, really anything. People can recommend stuff, but any sort of educational content. And again, a lot of times it's stuff that we've heard a million times, but it's in a different way, explained with different examples that just make things click a little bit different. Tentacle says, "Oh, y'all have a Discord." Yes, I do have a Discord. Discord! Exclamation mark Discord. There you go. And I do that early in the morning, 8 a.m. my time. Right now it's 3 p.m. So that's however many hours ago. 7 hours ago. No, wait. Yeah, 7 hours ago. So that's when I'll do it tomorrow. So quite early in the morning. But yeah, anyone's welcome to join or recommend videos. Like I say, I typically just watch a few videos. It's not super long, but it can be fun. Sometimes there's good conversation and chat around concepts and stuff. Morning, Joe. Hebe, how's it going? Painting looks very pretty today. Oh, thank you. Pretty happy with it. Trying to add some little details in here. We're zooming in a bit more than normal. Uh-oh, am I lagging? I should probably save. Tentacle, ... how very suspicious. Tentacle says, Steve Houston's method for drawing heads is what clicked for me. I don't know Steve Houston's heads. I don't know Steve Houston's head. No, I don't know his method for drawing heads. I only really know of the Loomis method. I know there's some design ways of approaching it with like starting with shapes. But yeah, it's I guess that's exactly the type of stuff that I like watching on Sunday mornings, is sort of like different ways of approaching a topic that I'm already kind of familiar with, but just in a slightly different way. Because again, a lot of these things aren't like, they're not truths, right? They're just other people's ways of thinking about a thing. There was a Lightbox talk a while back, and the guy literally opened it up with saying, there's this concept of light, which I think I'm making up, and I don't think it's real, but it doesn't matter because it works. He said something along the lines of that. I'm like, that's a good way to start, because so much of art is that, right? Like, you just, it's having these models in your head. They don't have to be perfectly scientific. We actually rambled about something similar to this about light uh, in Discord last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, where we were kind of talking about like Rayleigh scattering, or like basically the reason the sky's blue, how the light scatters in the atmosphere, and then it by the time it makes it to your eyes, it's more blue, and a lot of the other light has either fallen off or like not traveled as far, or exactly what was happening was not really that important. And that was kind of my point, is like, by the time it scatters and it goes through this atmosphere, and it the blue light's hitting your eyes and not the other colors of light as much, right? Same reason water is blue, because light shines through it, and lights, anyway, similar reason, I think. Maybe it's not the exact same, I don't know. Probably doesn't matter, because you can treat them as the same and it's still same effect, right? From a logic and decision making point of view. And that's I think what's more important. But it's also nice to try to understand some of the science or the theory behind it, of why the thing is the way it is, because there probably will be edge cases. I may or may not know what you mean. I'm lost. Your name. Oh, Tedicle? Yeah. Play on words, tentacle and Ted. Maybe his name is Ted, or maybe it's not, and maybe he just really likes tentacles. The world may never know. Unless he tells us. But yeah, I'm pretty much wrapping up here. Either way, it's okay. Yeah. Either way, it's okay. Sure is. Like dawn and dusk being literal rainbow in the sky. Huh. Is that, you mean like as a concept, like if that's the way you think about it? Yeah, I mean, I've never thought about it that way, but like if you were, and if you were to think like, oh, it's a rainbow in the sky, but you're seeing it at a certain angle. I don't know if that's accurate scientifically, but like if that's the way that you're going to help remember certain concepts, that's fine. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As long as you know, as long as you're not like I think it's fine to make up like fake scientific explanations for things, because again, the whole goal is to have some explanation that is at least repeatable enough from art piece to art piece so that you can make choices based on your knowledge. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what's actually happening, but again, it doesn't matter because like it helps you make choices. And if you are, oh, I'm painting a low angle sun. Oh, maybe the light will scatter a different way than I'm normally used to. Great. Scatter it a different way. Get different colors. Maybe some reds, maybe some oranges. Guess what? That's also probably what you would actually see, you know? Maybe not, though. I mean, this is where, like, being open to updating your mental models. And at some point, if you learn a different explanation that is easier to remember or makes more sense in more situations, it's good to be able to like be flexible and don't just believe something that's wrong and be stubborn about it, but like, it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't matter for art if it's perfectly accurate. It's more matters is it useful. Anyway, that's my ramble. Should this ever go that way? No. Oh, LOL. Oh, I didn't read that part. You said something about Joe hitting the nail on the head. Oh, LOL. Jill hit the nail on the head. I was pestering him for months with questions under Ted Grant. Another art streamer may or may not have pressured me to change the name because tentacles. That's funny. Wait, another streamer pressured you into changing your name? I mean, as long as you wanted to do it. Don't let other people pressure you into doing things. Take control of your own. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not your dad. Do what you want to do. But yeah, I'm just wrapping up here. Adding some smudgy stuff in the foreground. Some little shapes. Speaking of another streamer, who shall we raid today? And on this note, if you're on YouTube watching the VOD or watching live, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Hope to see you on the next stream, which will be on Monday. Every Monday.
every Thursday and every Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitch and technically on YouTube. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And on Twitch, we're going to raid someone else. So take care, everybody on